colleagues and friends, welcome to this regular meeting of the Los Angeles City Board of Public Works for Friday, October 1, 2021. This is the day I start getting lobbied immediately for decorating my home for Halloween. Actually, I've been lobbied for the last 2 weeks to promise October 1. I haven't made that promise yet. I see Teresa nodding her head, so we'll see. My house would be decorated for Halloween at the beginning of September if I didn't put the kibosh on that.
We already started decorating.
Yeah, I don't want my daughter to hear that, Teresa. So, all right, good morning, everybody. Dr. Campos, do we have quorum?
Good morning, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, establishing roll call and quorum. We have President Good, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioners Caloza and Villegas. President Good, you do have a quorum. At this time, we currently do not have any commentary under general public comment. We have no commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section, and no speakers on the line for today's agenda for general public comment on any of the items.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Campos. General public comment is officially closed, and we will go right into our very full agenda. Let's start with the minutes from Wednesday, September 15, 2021. I'll motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, incredible enthusiasm over the minutes from September 25th. I got 2 seconds, Dr. Campos. Davis and Villegas. Caloza, any concerns?
No concerns. Thanks.
All right. Hearing none, the minutes from Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 are adopted and approved forthwith. That brings us to, and just for everybody's edification, I'm going to, we're going to take items 5 and 6 together. We're going to move them to the end of the meeting. I know that...
you said 5, 6, and 7?
No, just 5 and 6.
Okay.
Does that create a problem for you, Bob? I saw a reaction.
Oh, never. This is my favorite. This is my favorite vacation day ever.
Oh no. Well, how about Dr. Romano?
I set aside 3 hours, so I'm good. So we're all right.
I'm sorry. I just know that Alex.
It's a very complex item, so I think it needs to be handled that way. So
and Alex, I know, had a bit of a family emergency he needed to deal with this morning, but said he would be able to come toward the end, and so that's why I wanted.
Perfect for me. I'm good. I'm all good.
Okay, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Dr. Romano. All right, so with that, let's go let's take item number 1, and this will get Sherry Simons some time in her day left. Sole source purchase 2 impeller vanes Hyperion water reclamation plant. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation to request the Department of General Services to sole source purchase 2 impeller vanes for process air compressor number 1, located at the oxygen generating facility at the Hyperion water reclamation plant, with a maximum cost of $450,000, including labor, taxes, shipping, and handling. And 2, direct the Department of General Services, as authorized by the city charter, to create a one-time purchase order for the vendor Dresser Rand for the purchase of the aforementioned item. Ms. Simons, I think this is your cue.
Good morning, President Good and members of the Board of Public Works. I'm Sherry Simons, Environmental Engineer with LA San at Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant. I'm in the Process Engineering Group and manager of the plant's Capital Equipment Replacement Program. And with me is Christopher Giacomo. He's Acting Sanitation Manager, also with LA San at Hyperion. And Chris is with Maintenance and is the manager of the Maintenance Planning Group. I'm going to be going over the project background and lead-up, and Chris will provide the project details. Just to give some background, Hyperion's secondary treatment process is high-purity oxygen-activated sludge, and that is used to remove the pollutants from the wastewater biologically using microorganisms and high-purity oxygen. Now, the oxygen is produced by the plant's oxygen-generating facility, which is a cryogenic facility that compresses, cools, and separates air into its primary components, oxygen and nitrogen. And that oxygen is then mixed into the reactors. Now, the oxygen-generating facility has 5 Siemens VK40 4-stage process air compressors, or PACs, that supply air to the cryogenic facility. Each compressor is about 4,500 horsepower and can supply 24,000 standard cubic feet per minute. And the PICs are critical to the operation of the oxygen generating facility and the secondary treatment process, and ultimately for permit compliance. And PIC number 1 has been out of service since June of 2017 due to high vibration. And the repair was included in the Hyperion's capital equipment replacement program in fiscal year 18-19. And on November 6, 2019, the Board of Public Works authorized a sole source one-time purchase order to Dresser-Rand, the authorized service provider for Siemens, who's the original equipment manufacturer of the compressors, to overhaul PAC number 1 for a not-to-exceed amount of $630,000. And then I'm just going to hand this over to Chris, and he'll go over the details of that project.
Good morning, Board. President Good.
Good morning, Mr. Giacomo.
To summarize the project, the repair began January 2021. In late February, the teardown was complete and the rotating assemblies of the impeller pinions were sent to Siemens Dresser-Rand's facility in Texas. In May, we received the diagnostic findings and service report regarding the assemblies. Pinions number 1 and 2 found no abnormal conditions. Pinions 3 and 4 failed a penetrant testing, and the testing found missing brazing material between the impeller's backing plate and vanes. It also found knifing wear on the impeller edges. Both pinions 3 and 4 are approximately 18 inches in diameter and spin between 8 and 12,000 RPM. And due to their size and high speed, the brazing fault is unrepairable, and we must replace both units. The purchase included within this presentation includes 2 replacement impeller assemblies, some miscellaneous materials, as well as inlet guide vane dampeners, which just are responsible for directing the airflow and conditioning the airflow before the airflow is introduced to the impeller assembly. At that time, we received the additional scope quote and initiated this project for phase 2 of the repair.
Thank you.
That concludes that.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Christopher. Colleagues, questions? I'll start with Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. If you could just give us a little bit of context. You said has this equipment been not operational since 2017?
That's correct.
And what was done without it? How was it? How was it compensated?
There are 4 other units. Hyperion must run 1 unit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes in the need for additional air for the cryogenic facility, we do start up 2 units. 2 units are generally the max that we run. Hyperion had significant backup redundancy to where it wasn't immediately an issue, but we did spend that first year doing diagnostic testing with our own maintenance staff. And once we determined that the unit would have to be fully disassembled, this is a very large, very complex, very precision machined equipment, we had to turn it over to the manufacturer of the equipment, and that's when we initiated the project request mid-2018, late 2018.
Okay. All right. And so this is going to be with the same vendor?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. I know. So then you will have 4 in operation, or not all the time, but you will have 4 of these.
4 available for backup. 1 running, 4 for backup.
3 for backup, 1 running.
4 for backup and 1 running. There's 5 total.
Oh, there's 5. You didn't mention that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I have no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. President Pro Tem Davis.
Yes, could you tell me, you mentioned in the report something about some knifing observation that occurred in your assessment. Could you elaborate a little bit or further explain that to me, please?
The knifing wear on the edge of the impeller would be, I don't know, if you could imagine your home fan, the leading edge of that fan blade has been worn to a sharp edge. And it's inconsistent with the other blades within this fan.
Sure.
So that also creates imbalance issues, which further caused the original reason for the machine shutdown, which was a vibration of that particular pinion shaft.
So needless to say, the repairs here are urgent.
Correct. This is a very critical process, and these machines take a very long time to organize such repairs, evidenced by the project history and the board report.
And that was my next question. How long do you anticipate the repair will take?
The lead time on the impellers, I believe that there was a relatively short lead time. The reassembly is about 3 weeks. Shipping is another 2. I can imagine within 3-4 months, the unit's back to a startup commissioning phase.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Commissioner Closa?
And thank you, President Good. I only have one more question to ask. I think my colleagues did a great job asking the other questions already. Is just wanted to get confirmation whether or not you have the city attorney's concurrence with the sole source. I know we typically see that for other sole source requests from bureaus.
Commissioner, I can speak to that. We absolutely concur in the recommendations here in the report. So I'm happy to confirm that here.
Okay. Thank you for confirming, Mr. Jordan. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Giacomo?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So just for, as a point of clarification, definitely urgent, but what this really is about is beefing up our redundancy, correct?
Correct. And when one unit fails, depending on the scope, it could take some time to repair. So we have to maintain full redundancy at all times.
As evidenced by our experience over the last couple months, for sure. So, all right, thank you. That makes sense, and thank you, Mr. Jordan, for weighing in. I will. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Villegas.
You did call on me, but I just wanted just to state, for the board letter, for when you were coming back to the board. This is a niche, and I would recommend that you include pictures because the tanks that are included don't do justice for the actual work that you're talking about. That's my recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're saying, what, can you repeat that, Commissioner?
Yes, the pictures that are included in the board letter don't do, they don't talk, I mean, there's more inside the tanks that happen, and that's what they're talking about. So I want to see pictures of the actual, you're talking about the blades, right? And you're talking about technical issues. And I can Google this, the images, but it doesn't do me good because I don't know the what's inside, and I would like to see more pictures of images.
So of the damage, for example, or
Yeah.
more like.
And what is inside these tanks, and what does it look like? Or I quickly Googled a picture of impeller vans, and there's different images for them. But just saying, for describing purposes, you don't need to talk about. You already mentioned them, but I'm just saying for images, because I always look at all the attachments and I don't see them. That's all.
We do. We'll stress the complexity of the machine next time and give it a pretty preview of that.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's a really, I think that's a great sort of prospective point, Commissioner Vegas, is that, and I guess the amount of time she and I have been spending on Hyperion, I think just underscores for both of us that imagery of the scope of what happens there is really really meaningful. It is, and so I think that's a great call. It's just and illustrative for all of us. So that's a great point. All right, so I will motion to move the item forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Any concerns or objections, Commissioners Villegas or Colosa? All right, hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you very much, Ms. Simons and Mr. Giacomo. Y'all have great weekends, okay?
You too.
Okay. That brings us to item number 3. Excuse me, item number 2. Item number 2 is a budget increase in amendment number 3, task order solicitation SN-102, AECOM Technical Services, Inc. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation or her designee to issue amendment number 3 to toss SN-102 to AECOM Technical Services, Inc., extending the term of engagement from October 1, 2021 through July 22, 2024 for continuing the Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant Toxicity Reduction Work Plan Special Study determining HWRP's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit compliance and the impact of transforming HWRP to a 100% water recycling facility by 2035 and performing the public community outreach. And 2, approve a budget increase of $351,692, including $35,795 contingency, increasing the total budget from $400,000 to $751,692. Who is with us on this item?
This is me, Tu Van Ho. Good morning, everyone. President Good, commissioners. My name is Tu Van Ho. I'm with the Hyperion Reclamation Plant, and I am project manager of TOS SN-102 for the Hyperion Acute Toxicity and Ammonia Special Study and Work Plan. Today, I am requesting the Board of Public Works to authorize the Sanitation Director or her designee to issue amendment number 3 to AECOM Technical Services Incorporated. The purpose of amendment number 3 is to extend the contract term to July 22nd, 2024, to continue the special study and to approve additional budget of $351,692 to increase the total budget from $400,000 to $751,692 to fund the additional scope of work to determine the Hyperion NPDES permit compliance and the impact of transforming Hyperion treatment plant to 100% water recycling facility by 2035, and to perform the public community outreach to meet public relation needs of wastewater treatment facility infrastructure modification. The additional work is required by the regional board, and the permit on the planned water recycling for the effluent toxicity and ammonia water quality objective at Hyperion, and to comply with the Mayor's Sustainable City Plan Goal number 3 to recycle 100% of the city wastewater by 2035. In regards to the sub-consultant participation, as of June 4, 2021, AECOM achieved 0% for MBE, WBE, SBE, EBE, DVBE, and 18% for OBE. The 0% for the other small enterprise, because of the work involved, is highly specialized. And for the new pledge, sub-consultant participation based on the new budget increase, AECOM pledge 3.5% for MBE, SBE, EBE, and DVBE, 0% for WBE, and 11.7% for OBE. This is my presentation. Do you have any question for me?
Let's make our rounds. Dr. Davis.
Yes, let's reflect back on the inclusion numbers from AECOM. You mentioned that there was an area where they did have some inclusion for, I think, was it minority businesses or what? You mentioned a small amount. Could you elaborate further on that, please?
Yes. Actually, because the work is special study, and it's require AECOM to evaluate and determine the infrastructure modification in order to transform Hyperion to 100% recycled water facility in future. And AECOM, they reach out to all minority, and they could not find any enterprise. They meet the expertise in the water recycling. So that's why they pledge very low, like for 3.5% for MBE, SBE, EBE, DVBE, and this company, this small subconsultant, they will perform the public outreach.
Is that small consultant a minority business?
Yes, because this subconsultant, they certified by MBE, SBE, EBE, DVBE.
That's wonderful. Great.
Yes.
In terms of the report that we got back, we are compelled to improve the infrastructure at Hyperion. Can you elaborate in terms of, just if you can paraphrase, the kind of things that we need to do to get up to the standard that's being required of us as it relates to the request?
Okay, yes. Because in order to transform Hyperion to water recycling facility, we hire AECOM to determine and evaluate the current effluent pumping plant and 5-mile outfall. Because in the future, when we recycle the water, there is less effluent, secondary effluent discharge into the 5-mile. So then the salt water, if you fill up the 5-mile outfall pipe, and it may be rotic or it will concern when we discharge the effluent and doesn't meet the requirement by the permit. So that's why we need them to evaluate the infrastructure for us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Commissioner Colosa?
So strange. I kept unmuting and you kept muting me. Thank you for your report. And I think my colleagues did a really great job asking you some of the additional questions. The additional ones I wanted to ask about was related to the task that you mentioned. I know that the goal is to look at transitioning and transforming our recycling of our water by 2035. When will these additional tasks be completed so that we can kind of work backwards towards that goal?
Because for this one, we expect our plant manager want AECOM to finish within a year, and then we maybe extend another year if they haven't complete. But we really want them to finish within 1 to 1.5 years, no more than 2 years.
Got it. And that timeline will make sure that the city and LASAN and the department is in compliance with the permit requirements. I know a bunch of these tasks are tied to permit requirements.
Yes, we just renew the permit this month.
Okay.
We just submitted the application to regional board this month.
Okay. So the actual report that's being discussed in this item, is that public? Because you mentioned that it was submitted, or is that more just for the board for compliance purposes? Just curious to see if for those listening who are really interested in our water recycling efforts, if they're able to actually look more closely at this report that AECOM put together for us.
Yes. Actually, the work plan we already submitted to the regional board in March 2021, and for additional work, this is for the board and the sanitation to review. We're not going to submit it to regional board because it's not finalized. Right now we're just working on the plan, how we modify infrastructure at Hyperion, and then we put in the report, and then we discuss with sanitation executive and the board members first.
Okay, so it sounds like a version of the finding of this report would become public for the public. Is that correct?
That's one I was not informed about posted to the public. No.
Okay. Yeah, we can connect about it offline. I was just curious if there was anything that would be part of a more public release for the reporting, because I know this is an important goal for the mayor, for council, for the department. But that's okay if you don't know it offhand.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, no problem. I don't think I have any more questions for you, but thank you for your report, Ms. Fan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clozo. I suspect, Mr. Jordan, that the report would, even if not distributed, would be public record at some point, the study, once it's completed.
Well, certainly at a certain point it will be. I don't know if we're at that stage yet.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Sounds like they're still working on it. So,
Yeah.
You know, we don't necessarily throw a lot of drafts around when something's still in progress.
No. I meant ultimately.
Yes.
Commissioner Clozo's point, yeah. So,
Yes.
which may not completely answer your question, Commissioner Clozo, but I was just checking with that. Okay, great. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I appreciate my colleagues' questions. Thank you.
Yeah, ditto. So thank you for the report. I will take. I'm satisfied with this, and I mean it's obviously crucial. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Clozo. Any concerns or objections, Commissioner Villegas? All right, hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right, that brings us to item 3. Item 3 is on-call personal services contracts renewal, 9 qualified firms, sanitation automation master plan, recommending the board authorize the Bureau of Sanitation to exercise the first of 3 one-year renewal options contained in on-call personal services contracts with 9 firms: 3DI Inc., CDM Smith Inc., CH2M Hill Engineers Inc., DCSE Inc., Inflection Point Solutions LLC, Nth Generation Computing Inc., Parsons Environment and Infrastructure Group Inc., Tetra Tech Inc., and Western Engineering Inc. to continue to provide as needed professional services for software engineering, software system integration, local and wide area network and server design, automation and or construction management, database and training services, and cloud and hosting services. The total contract cost ceiling also remains unchanged at $20 million. Mr. Tran, are you here on this item?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, President Good and fellow commissioners. Nicholas Tran, Director of Systems for LA Sanitation. We are requesting a 1-year renewal of our on-call personal services contract, which was established in February 2016 for 5 years with 3 1-year renewals. We're requesting to exercise the first 1-year renewal for the 9 qualified firms. We use this on-call contract for a variety of services that helps meet the needs of LA Sanitation. Some of the projects that are associated with this contract is our Sandstar, which is our mobile fulfillment system that we use to close out service requests in the field. Also, we use it for MyLA 311 enhancements and changes, PC support, any network server support that we need, and other projects. So we're exercising this 1 year. It expired in April. Do you guys have any questions for me?
What is the terms of the new on-call list from what's the period of time?
So this contract just renews, so it's for another 1 year with the same terms.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
My apologies. I had to step away for one quick second. Dr. Davis, are you good?
Yeah, I was asking about the time period that he answered my question.
Okay, great. Commissioner Coloso.
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your report, Mr. Tran. Can you walk me through a little bit on the progress on some of the tasks that different firms have been assigned? I know this is a part of your larger automation master plan. Can you give us like big picture where LA San is on that, since you're 6 years into your contract or into your plan, it looks like?
Sure. So this contract is for a lot of as-needed projects. For example, for the MyLA 311 project, which was a citywide service request system. So we're coming close to end of life on that system. So we're looking to do some work on replatforming that possibly with ITA. So to provide a better customer service and automating a lot of different pieces in terms of improving that customer experience. Also, with a lot of the requests from council offices in terms of the CARE program, we use this contract to build out the authorization management system to help streamline and automate operational processes for the homeless cleanups. So we're in the process of we're using this contract, and we need to renew that task order solicitation to continue to make changes on that system to improve, just to accommodate all the data collection requests that the council offices have asked of us. Also, meeting a lot of the mandates from the conduct codes in terms of collecting data adequately, ensuring that we're treating people out there appropriately. So for the most part, this contract helps kind of supplement or our staff that whether it's resources or a lack of expertise in certain areas. And then in terms of cloud services, we're also looking to use this to establish some cloud, cloud servers or cloud systems in the future. So this is kind of an overarching contract that helps us establish any type of work that we cannot do in-house.
Okay. So it sounds like that, I'm just going off of the name of the original task that you're calling it Automation Master Plan. That's really more of an umbrella for ongoing projects, less so like an actual master plan that LA Sanitation has. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then on the actual subcontractor utilizations, I think I counted, are there 6 tables here in the board report? So, and there's 9 contractors. Did I get that correctly?
Yes, I believe so. Alexa, who is our administrator for this contract, can kind of help chime in on this.
Hi, I am Alexa as far as that. I helped with the administrative portion of taking care of all of the tosses involved with this contract. For the tables, yes, that's correct. The other 2 firms don't have any tosses that they've responded to or been awarded, so there isn't any numbers to report for them.
Got it. So you just clarifying, so there'd be 3 contractors that haven't responded, right? Because it's there's 6 tables and then.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I was
there's contractors.
Right. I counted it because of the tables being numbered, but number 1 is a different table. But yes, that's correct.
Okay. And they just haven't responded to the tasks that you've all put out. That's really the reason why there aren't any. Just to.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any more questions for you all. I may after today's board report, I would like to kind of understand the I guess the intent of the automation master plan. Because I guess at first glance, I thought there was an actual master plan that you guys were transitioning LA San into, but then it sounds like this is, like you all mentioned, an on-call list for different tasks that you're all responding to. But I can follow up with you after this board meeting. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Mrs. Sparza, it looked like you had one follow-up.
Yes, I was just going to say regarding the master plan, there was a plan established years ago as sanitation was moving forward with expanding our projects and automating what had been previously done in other manners. So over time, the plan, the automation and innovation has just continued. So it's become more of an umbrella, but the intent of the original plan is where these on-call contracts were established.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sparza, for that clarification. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, and thank you for that context. I appreciate Commissioner Caloza's questions. Just raised another question for me with what you just mentioned. If it started out as one thing and now it's, I know that you're still under the auspice of the 3 one-year renewals, it still retains the same title, but the actual on-call list is doing different tasks. Is that correct?
No, it's the same. It's the same, part of the same plan. It's just the plan has been ongoing, and so the tasks are continued from the automated master plan.
So they're connected still?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Just a point of clarification for next time. It seems like and maybe you know your work the best. When we hear it, it seems like it's not connected. But I appreciate what you just mentioned, that it is ongoing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Commissioner Villegas. I don't have any further questions either. I appreciate the discussion and and the clarification. That makes sense. So, is there a plan at some point to reconsider the master plan or re-up or revise the master plan and potentially go back out?
Yes, there is a plan to do so. I think Our plan is to amend this current contract for another 5 years, and then we're going to do a new contract to solicitate new vendor participants to replace this contract eventually.
But not necessarily another 5 years. It's just the first of 1 year renewal.
Yeah, this is for the first of 1 year renewal.
Okay.
Yeah, we are working on the amendment. We'll come back to the board to approve that for 5 years. But this particular action is just for the 1 year renewal.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Do I have a second? Did you just second, Mike? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Second.
All right, take your second. Any concerns or objections, Commissioner Colosa? Okay. Hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sparza and Mr. Tran. Y'all have great days.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us, folks, to item number 4. Item number 4 is contract amendment number 1, personal services contract BJ Used Tire and Rubber Recycling, Inc. Recommending the board, 1, approve and forward this report with transmittals to the mayor and the city council with the request that the Board of Public Works be authorized to execute the 5-year renewal term and amendment number 1 to personal services contracts between the City of Los Angeles and BJ Used Tire and Rubber Recycling, Inc. for collection, transportation, and processing of used waste tires for beneficial reuse. The contract cost remains the same at $4 million for 10 years, including this 5-year renewal period and contract amendment number 1. And 2, execute the contract amendments upon the mayor's and council's authorization. So, Mr. Milo, are you here on this item?
Yes, I'm here, President Good.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much, Commissioner Good. Good morning, members of the Board of Public Works, Commissioner Calosa, Commissioner Davis, and Commissioner Villegas. My name is Ron Milo from LA San SRSSD, Solid Resources Support Services Division. Item number 4 is the requesting authority to exercise the 5-year renewal option. Contract amendment number 1 for personal services contract with BJ Used Tire Rubber Recycling for the collection, transportation, and processing of used waste tire for beneficial reuse. So allow me to give some background. CalRecycle is mandated by AB 1843, or otherwise known as the Tire Recycling Act, and SB 876 to regulate and manage the used waste tire within the state and provide guidelines on the waste tire management to include enforcement, cleanup, abatement, research, market development, and tire holder and manifest programs. So on July 3, 2013, the board authorized LA San to distribute an RFP and negotiate a contract with the top-ranked proposer for the collection and transportation of these used tires. On June 29, 2015, LA San executed a 5-year contract with BJ, and with this contract, BJ shall be responsible for the collection of approximately 26,000 used tires per year from LA San's 6 district yards or other city locations. BJ has been responsible for transporting used tires collected from the district yards for recycling and beneficial reuse in local markets, including but not limited to providing feedstock for rubberized slurry seal, for paving the streets, artificial turf, ground cover for playgrounds, surface materials for track and fields, and used as a tire-derived fuel or can be used as retraded tires. The term of the contract was 5 years from the date of execution, with one option to renew for an additional 5 years. The estimated value of the contract over 10 years, including this renewal option, is $4 million. So on June 29, 2020, the initial 5-year contract term was expired. And as per Article 7 of the contract, a 6-month extension was exercised effective June 30, 2020 to December 30, 2020. So after December 30, 2020 to present, all tires are disposed at Azusa landfill using our waste disposal contract with Waste Management. Amendment number 1 includes price increase. Although there was a proposed price increase, the contract ceiling cost of 4 million will not change. It is worth to note that BJ has been in contract with the city from 2015 to 2020. LASAN was able to lock down the price with any rate increase. Under this renewal contract, the city will be enjoying a 10 to 15% cheaper rate than neighboring cities and counties. The price increase in this renewal contract is attributed to multiple factors, to include but not limited to upgrade of BJ transportation trucks to meet the SAQMD zero emission program, increase of cost tire recycling and beneficial reuse technology, their operational increase, including the salaries of their employees and the benefits. So this project provides an environmentally sound opportunity for all city residents to dispose their used tires. LASAN Solid Resources Support Services and the LASAN Solid Resources Collection Division jointly manage this program. That ends my my report, and I'm ready to answer if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milo. Commissioner Villegas, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your report, Mr. Milo. I was just looking through the board report. I don't have any questions. I understand what you're all doing. Actually, just maybe one question. In terms of outreach, how is that coming along?
So we have in our for the amnesty program, wherein this is the opportunity for all residents to bring in at least a minimum of 4 tires per year. So our yards are open to bring those tires into the yards and collect them, and then by the contract that we are proposing for this one, DJ will be collecting them and then bring them to the recycling facility. So aside from that, we are also in partners with the Solid Resources Citywide Recycling Division in their mobile collection events. So we also partner with them, and they bring all the tires, the hazardous waste, and things like that. So it's just like a one-stop shop, wherein all the flyers will be there.
Okay. And who's in charge of all the outreach?
Part of it is the mobile collection events, and part of it is also our PAO. We work with our PAO, and then they outreach to all other departments or other neighborhood councils that there will be some collection events for the tires.
All right. I don't have any more questions. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Commissioner Calosa.
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your report, Mr. Milo. Thank you also for briefing me recently. I do have a few follow-up questions, and I might have asked you in the briefing already. I apologize if I did. But wanted to ask about the month-to-month basis that's listed in the report from June 2020 to December 2020. Can you explain what happened there? I know that the 5-year renewal technically ended in 2020 last year, and it's now October 2021. If you can just explain what happened there.
Yes, before the contract expired, Commissioner, we already tried to exercise that renewal option. And because of some price increase that they are proposing, it took us a while to negotiate with the price that they have. And until we come out with that 6-month renewal option. And until then, we were able to finalize the contract. And I mean, as far as the economics of the contract, we were able to come out with a final cost. And and we came out that the 4 million ceiling cost is not will not even change.
Was the 6-month extension, was that originally part of the contract, or was that something that we did because negotiations were still?
No, that's part of the original contract.
Okay. And then since the 6-month, month to month that ended in December 2020, it's now been 10 months since then. So that's when, are we backdating this contract
No.
to begin in December 2020?
So once the 6 months ended, Commissioner, we use our waste disposal contract with waste management, wherein based on the hierarchy of disposing these tires, we are also allowed to bring it to Azusa landfill. So from the time the 6-month contract expired, all the tires collected from from January of 2021 up to the present, all tires are being disposed at Azusa.
Right. I remember you mentioned that to me now in the briefing. So unfortunately, in the last few months, they haven't been recycled.
No. Yes.
Okay. That's really unfortunate. And this will hopefully correct that. And the other question that I had is, can you just walk me through again on the rate adjustments that we have and the slight increases that we're seeing here? I know for some of them they are modest, right, as rate adjustments go, and then some of them there's a higher increase per tonnage here for some of them.
So thank you for that question, Commissioner. As I mentioned in my report earlier, the first 5 years of the contract, we were able to lock down with no rate increase, and they were able to provide the services that we asked from the contract, and all the tires have been recycled and for beneficial reuse. And the reason why also we were not able to have the contract executed on time is because there was some kind of negotiation because of the different factors that I mentioned, like they are purchasing new trucks for their collection in order to comply with the air quality management, and also because of the recent pandemic, some of their employees are not coming to work because of the pandemic, and the only way for them to retain those employees is to increase their salaries and to give them additional benefits and bonuses. And also one of the reasons is there is some research that they are conducting in order for have more recycling of these tires, and they are part of BJ is part of this research. Like they are now in the process of using recycled tires to use for producing new tires, but there are still some safety measures that they are working with other agencies, and hopefully if this will be the path that they will be approving, then majority of our tires will be used for raw materials for producing new tires.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Milo. And this is they're a small business, is that correct? They're certified as a small business. Is this a women-owned business? Did I remember this correctly?
Pardon me, Commissioner?
Is this contractor, are they a women-owned business?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I remember hearing that, and I thought that was really exciting to see a woman-owned business take on our tire program, which is really important to reusing and recycling all this material that's being is going unused. And I know there's some really good information about how many employees they employ in the city of LA, and they have 6. So 6 out of 16. So I just wanted to also note that for the record. And the last thing that I will add before I yield my time is I agree with Commissioner Villegas' point about the outreach is hopefully we can share and do more outreach materials for this program. It's a really important one. And hopefully we can put this contract to good use once more residents know about it, because I'm sure there's a lot of auto shops, a lot of even dealerships, right, that may have a lot of used tires that could be disposed of in addition to residential tires. So thank you, Mr. Milo, and I'll pause there and see. Did you want to add something, Mr. Potter? I saw you.
No, I just want to add that it's not solely for residential, so we do the illegal dumping and abandoned tires that we collect. So, to have those also collected and recycled is very important.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And I yield the rest of my time. Thank you, Mr. Milo, for answering my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. President Pro Tem Davis.
Yes, in terms of the scope of work, Commissioner Colosa just mentioned commercial businesses. Now, they are responsible for their own tire management. Are they or not? Is there an overlay of what we do that involves commercial facilities as well in the city?
For this program, Commissioner Davis, is intended for residential.
That's what I thought. So in terms of the residential, in terms of what we do in the city, we have numerous programs that this contractor has done in the past. Obviously, we were satisfied with the performance that they have, and this is the reason why we're coming to extend it for the final 5-year option to renew. And when we look at specifically the work that they did as it relates to the city, we had some programs certainly in the most challenging areas of the city, such as in, for example, South Los Angeles, where we had a program where we went through South LA. And I think we collaborated with another vendor there to get tires, I guess, and then this vendor would then process and recycle that information, that materials and resources that we brought back. If I'm not mistaken, we did do it in each of the major council districts in the South LA area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner. And also, just to let you know that part of our recycling loop process, BJ processed these used tires as a crump rubber. And these crump rubber are being purchased by asphalt company, and the street services has this asphalt wherein they mix this crump rubber with the asphalt. So that's where the closing of the loop. So they we provide the tires to BJ, and then they process it to crump rubber, and then our street services purchase a certain amount of the crump rubber. I'm just not sure how much is the percentage to combine the crump rubber with this asphalt, but that's where our street services are buying those crump rubber to mix with the asphalt, and they use it to pave our street.
So we have been able to be successful in terms of our most challenging areas, particularly again in South LA in the 8th, 9th, 10th, and some of the 15th, which would be the Watts area, and we've been able to equally do the same thing in CD1, I think, with a different vendor in terms of helping to do the outreach and collect the rubbers. But that area equally has been served by this particular vendor that we're discussing today in terms of recycling the rubbers, the tires, in other words, that have been coming from that community in East LA as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
So I appreciate the fact of them being a partner to us, helping us to achieve our environmental goals for recycling. And I'm also very pleased that there is an interrelationship between both the grants that we've been able to capture through Cal Recycle, for example, that we have used as a base, a supplemental base to support us in the outreach of collecting these materials and resources in South LA. And we've used a different vendor, and we did it a different way in East LA or through CD1. But I think collectively, this is a great partnership for us, and it is necessary for us to continue to reach our goals. And I anticipate that we will have the same success that we've had over the last 5 years, this upcoming final remainder of years that we have in terms of putting together the contract. And I think finally, it is great that we were able to negotiate it at the same price that we enjoyed in terms of our initial collaboration together to work with this particular vendor. So I support the item, and I look forward for our continued collaboration with the vendor.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Just as a point of clarification, we actually are increasing the price, albeit I think at a fair level. Correct, Mr. Milo?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Oh, I thought you said we had it at we got a reduced rate, Mr. Milo. I must have misunderstood you.
No, we are still with the price increase that they proposed. We are still enjoying 10 to 15% lower price as compared to other cities and other counties.
I see. I see. So in terms of the availability in the market, we still came out on top in terms of what we pay versus what others who have gotten this service are paying currently.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for that point of clarification.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Thank you, Ms. Marlett. So I do have just a couple of quick questions. I want to understand again the sequencing, and I'll re-articulate, and then you help correct me, Mr. Marlowe. So first 5-year iteration, or first 5-year section of the contract expired on June 30, 2020. We had a built-in 6-month extension option.
Yes, it's part of the contract, Commissioner.
Got it, which we exercised. That expired, and
expired in December 30,
2022, right?
2020, yes.
We had already started negotiations at that point, or?
Yes, we already started the negotiation at that time. That's why there is a back and forth negotiation because of the different increase that they are proposing. But again, we were allowed to exercise that 6 months, and at the same time doing the renewal option.
And those negotiations were potentially, even though frankly it's a small amount in the grand scheme, in fact, very small amount, more protracted because of this sort of swirl of variables ranging from SEA QMD's truck requirements, which I'm very cognizant of, which is meaningful and important, COVID impacts on their staffing, probably COVID impacts on processing facilities. That is what we attribute that, because, you know, look, and Commissioner Closa hit on it, the boogaboo in this mix for me is remorse over 6 months of used tires going to landfills. That certainly sticks in my proverbial Texas craw, and so but that was really about these, that was attributable to the negotiations being stretched out because of these variables.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
That's a shame. That is too bad. And I know, I mean, it's not the only place where that's happened, but that is disappointing. So then rewinding, and this is just where you get, as certainly Bob Potter knows, you get a waste wonk here who wants to understand. So CalRecycle takes, okay, when we say we generate 4.8 million tires per year, at the very beginning of the background section, that means we're saying Angelino's essentially don't generate, but actually get rid of 4.8 million tires per year.
Yes.
Jesus, that is, excuse my language, that is astonishing. That is incredible.
That's the basis of the computation that provided by CalRecycle. So based on the population, that's how they generate that 1.2 tires per year.
Right, yeah, which is, yeah. Thank you. That math should have been clear to me too, but that's all right. That's amazing, troubling, bothersome, but whatever. No, not whatever, but, and so the 72.7% are diverted to financial or to beneficial end uses. Is that by who? Because we're talking right now about the 1.3 million that are left over that we deal with, right? And that's what this contract is about, is the 1.3 million being abandoned, right?
Yes, Commissioner.
So then that other 72%, what happens to those? And I'm sure there's is that a CalRecycle part? Like what happens to the rest of these?
So the 72 something percent, Commissioner, the residents bring it to some recycling facility, or they do that, where in some other cities also do collection events. So because of this awareness of the CalRecycle's program, the residents bring it for recycling. They don't want to bring it to just in the street. They were well informed that it's better to bring it to a recycling facility rather than bring it to a street wherein there will be some hazardous impact or health hazard for them. So, but in spite of all of this one, we still have that 20-something percent. Those are the ones that we are dealing with. And as per the report from CalRecycle, we are reducing now those number of tires because of this outreach that we've been doing. CalRecycle has been doing to all the cities in California. So we were able to capture all the tires for recycling. And besides that, they are even allowed to bring more tires to the recycling facility, wherein the California Highway Patrol has tried to a little not too strict on checking them, because before you are only allowed to bring like 8 tires. Now they are allowing more than that because of this program that we have.
So what we're dealing, so that's really helpful, Ron. Thank you. So in essence, we're dealing with the remainder. Like we're programming and working with BJs to deal with the remainder of what less responsible Angelinos are doing, which is putting tires on the parkway or et cetera. We're through our outreach, making sure that 1.3 becomes eventually 0.9 and 0.8, 0.7 and 0.6, et cetera. And it goes into that other bucket of existing programs in terms of how you deal with them.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay, that's great. That's great and interesting. One, I agree with everything my colleague said in terms of just heightening that outreach. They're a scourge. I would also encourage y'all, just as a sort of ancillary couple of notes, not relevant per se to the item before us, but one, as we're thinking through the next iteration past this this renewal, that, you know, thinking about collaborating with the illegal dumping, with our illegal dumping teams, because I think that's where what doesn't end up getting captured by our programming is what we end up dealing with. So we end up dealing with it sort of one way or another often, right? And so just conversations with LSD and some sort of cross-pollination might be productive. LSD, as in, I mean, y'all know the Livability Services Division. I think the other thing, and I just posit this as food for thought down the road, would be contemplating maybe a step back and more holistic approach to a next iteration of this, in which you could see a joint endeavor with sanitation and streets LA, where, you know, as opposed to, you know, we pay them to take this and then we pay them to give it back to us in another form, where potentially there's a crossover bureau sort of endeavor here to handle it all in one shot.
Yes, that would be the plan, Commissioner, for, as I said, for the street services to close the loop. And I just don't know how they buy that crumb rubber from this recycling company.
Right.
So, but that's the ultimate goal of this program. So we will try to work with street services if there will be some kind of negotiation on the price and how much and things like that. But again, that's still be part of this tire recycling program to close the loop, to use it for beneficial reuse.
That's great. So just, and everyone here's me say this all the time, I'm always going to encourage us to start with our sisters and brothers in other bureaus in terms of opportunities for collaboration, and this would be one like that, where working with Streets LA. And just for good measure, I would even suggest, as Ron, you're sort of, and Bob, y'all are like thinking through what this looks like long term, I would also contemplate talking with our proprietary sister and brothers who use a whole bunch of asphalt and are going to be using a bunch of asphalt over the coming years. So it would be interesting to contemplate some possibilities there as well. So I encourage you to think as expansively as possible. It certainly seems like a blue sky out there would be every discarded tire in the city of Los Angeles just goes towards all of our construction activities moving forward. You know, it seems like there's some real possibilities there.
Yes, will do, Commissioner.
So with that little soliloquy concluded, I will motion to move the item forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
So Davis is second. Villegas, Colosa, concerns, objections, epiphanies? All right. With that, hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you, Ron, for your good work in walking through this. Thank you, Bob. And Bob, I know you're around for a little bit more. So thank you. Have a great weekend, Ron.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Bob, I know you're watching Dodger highlights on another screen, so don't act like you're...
You caught me there.
Sorry. Lots of them this week, right? Okay, let's move now to item number... so we'll go to item 7, Bob, can you check and see if Alex is close to being able to join by chance?
He is. He's
Alex is here.
Oh, Alex is here. Okay, so then let's do this. I'm gonna suggest and Bob, be patient, but we're gonna take 6 and 7. I am going to call for a 5-minute recess because I think 6 and 7 are going to take some time. Forgive Shirley, please be patient, Ms. Lau. And so we'll take a 5-minute recess. We're going to be back at 11:35 on the nose, and we're going to go even deeper into waste. So get ready, everybody. We'll be back at 11:35. Good.
Okay.
Mr. President, you are now in record mode in both systems.
Thank you, Dr. Campos. Do we have quorum reestablished?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, reestablishing quorum. It's 11:37 a.m. We have President Good, President Good, President Pro Tem Davis, Commissioner Caloza, and Commissioner Villegas present. Mr. President, you do have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. In my infinite wisdom, over the course of that recess, I rethought this. What we're going to do is go ahead and take item 7, so that Ms. Lau can get back to work. I think, unless my colleagues make it otherwise, I think this is actually a pretty quick item. So we'll take 7, and then we'll go back to 5 and 6. Okay? You ready, Ms. Lau?
Yes, thank you, President Good, members of the board.
So item 7 is a street closure, Sanborn Avenue reconstruction near Washington Boulevard Street Improvement Project. Recommending the board authorize a temporary full closure of Sanborn Avenue from the intersection at Washington Boulevard to 300 feet northwest near 28th Avenue for 4 months starting on October 4, 2021 and ending on January 31, 2022 for the Sanborn Avenue Street Reconstruction Project. Good morning still, Ms. Lau. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much, President Good. I'm Shirley Lau with the Bureau of Engineering, Street Improvement Division. I'll start off with a little bit of background on this project. Sanborn Avenue is in a mixed commercial and residential area of Venice, east of the Venice canals. And it's also located in Council District 11. Due to subsidence of the street along this stretch of Sanborn Avenue, which is right north of Washington Boulevard to approximately 300 feet north of the intersection, there was severe flooding and ponding that occurred throughout the years, and it's creating a safety hazard on the street for vehicles. Also, the sidewalks, the curb and gutter, and they're very much damaged by the street and also by the subsidence, and so it all requires reconstruction. So this project will, in fact, reconstruct the entire roadway, all the sidewalks, curb and gutter, and the driveway. And that is, I'll reference the figure 1 there. You can see that it is from Washington Boulevard to, it's roughly 300 feet or so north of that intersection. So before you today is a request for authority to close the street, the full closure for 4 months. Based on that shaded yellow area before you on figure 1. The full closure is recommended because this is a local street, and so the roadway width is only 30 feet wide. It cannot accommodate one travel lane in each direction safely during construction. Also, for a full street closure, we can construct much faster and decrease the overall construction time of the street. Council District 11 has provided approval of this full street closure. DOE has also notified the Neighborhood Council, the Venice Neighborhood Council. Notifications were sent out to all the affected property owners, residents, and businesses. I also want to bring to your attention on figure 1, you can see that to the east and west of Sanborn Avenue, there's one hotel, which is on the right-hand side, which is east of Sanborn Avenue, and there's like a strip mall to the west of Sanborn Avenue. Both of these properties that front Washington Boulevard, they do have alleyways behind their property, and so that is where they will be having access throughout the 4-month closure. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this item.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lau. Colleagues, do we have questions? President Pro Tem Davis.
No questions for me on this item. I think the report was pretty clear for me. Thanks.
All right. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I appreciate your report, Ms. Lau. I don't know if I'm going to ask this question, but I don't know if it may be directed to you or someone else. I'm not sure. How did this intersection of Sanborn and Washington, how did it get to the eligibility to get done at this point in time?
So Commissioner, I just recently actually took over the Street Improvement Division, but I can find out that answer for you and provide that for you. Based on the award of the contract board report, this project was included in our CIEP, which is the Capital Improvement Expenditure Program. So I'm assuming that in the past, this was a request by either the community or the council office and subsequently got funded through that program. But I will verify that and provide you with the answer.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Commissioner Colosa?
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions for Ms. Lau. Thank you for your report. And I was also going to congratulate you. This is your first report to the board, I believe, as now leading up our new street improvement division, taking over from Mr. Steve Chen, who retired last week. So congratulations, Shirley. I know you'll bring your wealth of experience from the bridge improvement division over to this slightly larger portfolio that you're going to have now. So we look forward to seeing you more on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Closer.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Although we'll miss hearing from you on bridges. Thank you, and we do look forward to seeing you more on the streets. That we'll miss Mr. Chen as well. So I don't have any other questions. Actually, as you and I discussed in our briefing, I had the same question as Commissioner Villegas, and so if you want to just give us any background at some point offline afterwards, that'd be great. But in terms of the item before us, I am good to go. Do I have a motion to approve?
So I'll second.
Okay, I was going to say I'll second.
I actually think in my best Alex Trebek, I think Colosa got there first. I'm going to give Davis the second, and Commissioner Villegas an opportunity to speak now or forever hold her peace. All right, hearing no objections, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you, Shirley, very much. Have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend too.
Thank you. All right. That brings us, friends and family, to items 5 and 6. So, and the waste processing team of LA Sanitation. I see Alexander Halou, Bob Potter, Dr. Rowena Romano, and James Roska. Good morning, all y'all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read items 5 and 6 both into the record because they are inextricably connected. I believe my understanding is that y'all have a PowerPoint to share that basically encompasses both items, which I think makes a lot of sense. So I'll read them into the record. Mr. Roska, are you the lead on this?
Yes, I'm going to present the full presentation.
Terrific. So then once I read them into the record, we'll hand it over. Dr. Campos will give you the shared screen opportunity, and then we'll have a discussion. Okay? All right.
Mr. President, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer here. Just a quick reminder to the LA San team, if you could send me a copy of that presentation for the public record, we'd like to have it for any CPRA requests. And just a reminder that I'll make James Roska a co-host in about 30 seconds or so. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Dr. Campos. Okay. So item 5 is a request for proposals, receipt, transfer, processing, and beneficial reuse of organic waste, recommending the board 1, authorize the Bureau of Sanitation to distribute and advertise the transmitted request for proposals for the receipt, transfer, processing, and beneficial reuse of organic waste from the City of Los Angeles. 2, evaluate the proposals, select and interview the most qualified proposers based on established rating criteria. 3, negotiate a contract or contracts with the most qualified proposer or proposers. And 4, return to the Board of Public Works for authority to award and execute the contract or contracts subject to mayor and city council approval prior to contract execution. Item 6 is amendment number 1, personal services contract, USA Waste of California, Inc., DBA Waste Management, Curbside Collection Program. recommending the board approve and forward this report with transmittals to the mayor and the city council with the request that the Board of Public Works be authorized to exercise the three-year renewal, the three-year renewal option and execute amendment number 1 to personal services contract with USA Waste of California, Inc., DBA Waste Management for the receipt, processing, and reuse of green material and/or horse manure from the City of Los Angeles' curbside collection program. The amendment will change the renewal options from 2 5-year options to 1 3-year renewal option and increase the contract ceiling from $81,925,454 to $142,877,685, and 2, authorize the president or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract amendment upon approval by the mayor and city council. All right, Mr. Rosca, why don't you proceed with the presentation and we'll go from there.
Yes, good morning, President Good, Commissioners Caloza, Villegas, and Davis. Let me take a minute to present my screen. We have a presentation for you today, which will cover our overall organics program as well as these 2 items. So can you see my screen currently, the presentation? Okay, great. So today we're going to be discussing our overall organic waste collection program for the residential side, as well as the contracting mechanisms in regards to items 5 and 6. So there are a number of different organic programs, drivers, and policies, both at the state and local level, which kind of drive all of these organics programs. On September 19, 2016, Senate Bill 1383, Short-Lived Climate Pollutants, was signed into law, and this is really the overarching Senate bill which is going to address organics collection for the state. This applies both to our residential ratepayers as well as to our commercial recycle customers. 1383 mandates the collection of organic waste, which includes but is not limited to green waste, soiled paper products, wood material, horse manure, and other organic items generated throughout the state. We also have goals to reduce the amount of organics going to the landfill by 75% by the year 2025, and also to ensure that edible food is recovered at no less than 20% to our vulnerable communities. Our own city's mayor's sustainability plan, the LA Green New Deal, also has goals to launch citywide food scrap collection, establish local food scrap drop-off for local composting, recover and distribute edible food, and to eliminate all organic waste from going to the landfill by the year 2028. So for LA San, we are responsible for the collection of the black, blue, green, and brown bin from 750,000 single-family households every single week. For our green and brown bin program, we collect an average of 1,762 tons per day, and this is for yard waste and horse manure. As you can see, the materials accepted in our green bin are grass, leaves, weeds, tree branches. We do allow fruits and vegetables, but those are only those that are generated directly from your garden or from your trees, as well as clean wood. And then horse manure is collected for those residents that have horses on their property. So as you can see, food scraps is kind of the overall topic that we're trying to address, and currently are not allowed in our overall green bin program and must go in the black bin for disposal. We do have a number of pilot programs and other smaller organics programs for collection, such as collection at LAX, collection at City Hall, collection at the LA Mall, and then obviously our curbside pilot program, which has been running since 2019 for 18,000 households. So just to discuss the actual contracting and the vendors that provide the processing, you can see a majority of them on the left-hand side only are able to handle yard trimmings. We have contracted with Waste Management and Rainbow Environmental Services back in 2016, and both of these vendors just provided a mulching and chip and grind process. So they just take the yard waste, chip and grind, clean it from contamination, and then market the finished mulch material back to farmers and other end users throughout LA County and the neighboring counties of Riverside and Orange. We do also have our own city-owned and operated facilities, Lopez Canyon Environmental Center, as well as the Harbor Mulching Facility, and these handle a much smaller portion of the amount of material that we collect. We did establish additional contracts with some vendors that could handle the food waste. The first was CR&R. They established an anaerobic digestion facility out in Paris, California. We also set up a contract with them back in 2016. This was a 3-year contract from 2016 through 2019. And then we continued services with them through a 2-year letter of agreement, which just expired this past June. And then just last year, we established another letter of agreement with Recology. This is a large commercial composter located in Lamont, and they have a large facility that can do commercial composting of both the green and food waste. So as you can see, a majority of the material that we're currently collecting is just managed through yard trimmings, and then we are using the vendors that can handle the food scraps and yard trimmings combined to manage the current capacity of the pilot programs and food waste programs we have in place. So the first item is going to be item number 6. This is the waste management contract renewal. For some background, as I mentioned, the contract was executed May 9th of 2016. It was originally executed for 5 years with 2 5-year renewal options. So the first 5-year renewal was expiring in May of this year. We started negotiations with Waste Management to discuss the renewal back at the end of 2020. And at that time, Waste had brought up some concerns because they needed to basically change some of the terms of the existing contract. They have been able to successfully manage the material that we collect from both directly in the valley, as well as green waste that we collect from down in our metropolitan area, which is transferred through one of their transfer stations. And they handle about 60% of all the green waste that we collect. However, over the course of the first 5 years of the contract, there have been some changes in terms of the markets for the finished mulch material that they produce. This is both due to different regulations that have come from the state, as well as changes in regards to SB 1383 and how that's kind of changing the markets for both mulch and composting products. And additionally, we do have staff from Waste Management that are present here today, so if there's any additional questions, they're here to assist as well. So while we were working on the negotiation, Waste Management indicated they needed to do some rate increases to basically keep up with demand and changes in the market. So we came to the board on June 4th, 2021, requesting a 6-month extension so that we could do a month-to-month agreement while we worked to finalize the negotiated contract. At this time, the original contract ceiling for the first 5 years was $74.4 million, and we were allowed an increase of 10% just to cover us through that 6-month, month-to-month extension. So to discuss the actual rates, Waste Management provides us the processing at a tiered rate structure. So the more material that we bring to Waste Management, the cheaper it is for LA Sand when we pay the invoices. I just provided the rate structure that we had from fiscal year 2021 because we are still currently paying those rates while we've been waiting for the amendment to get executed. As you can see, Waste Management Bradley, which is their facility up in the valley where the actual processing gets done, we send them over an average of about 700 to 800 tons per day of material directly from the valley. So we get the highest tier with the cheapest cost. And then for the facility down in the metropolitan area, Waste Management Metro, where they do the transfer up to the valley, we typically fall in the above 250 ton per day range. And that's just based on the amount of material that we provide to that facility versus other vendors we use, such as Clark's. After negotiations with Waste Management, we were able to come up with the existing rates. Waste Management requested that we do the highest rate increase in the first year, so fiscal year 21-22. There's an approximate 25 to 30% increase versus the prior fiscal year. And then in the subsequent years, there's a 10 to 15% rate increase. And this is just due to, as I mentioned previously, changes in the markets, changes in the overall, I guess, cost to operate and run the facility, considering all the different changes that are happening with the end use of this material. So on our negotiation, we estimated out for a 3-year renewal term rather than the full 5-year renewal. And this is also in part due to the RFP that we're releasing, which will be the next item that I speak on. So when we estimated out our rates, the negotiated rates with a 20% contingency, the 3-year contract total comes up to about $68.4 million. If we do this extension, it would expand the expiration date to May 8th, 2024, though the city does have the ability to terminate for convenience, and I'll kind of elaborate further on this as it relates to the RFP. The new contract ceiling, including the $68.4 million, brings us to $142.8 million over the term of 7 years. And this is just kind of a breakdown to show you how much our annual costs to waste management have been to date, and how much this 30% kind of upfront increase would cost us, and then the subsequent 10 to 15% in the following years. So an estimated almost $3 million increase in this first fiscal year, and then under $2 million in the following years. And then moving on to our second item, this is for a request for proposals. This is for the receipt, transfer, processing, and beneficial reuse of our organic waste. As I mentioned, we have a number of programs that already currently collect food waste combined with green waste, but this is just being done at a pilot scale, and SB 1383 does mandate that we expand this collection program citywide. However, in order to do that, as we saw from the facilities we currently have contracts with, there isn't enough capacity with the contracts that we have in place, so we need to solicit new contracts from vendors that have the ability to take the green and food waste commingled. From our study, we estimate that there's almost as much as 3,000 tons per day of material that will be collected. This is 1,662 tons of green material and 100 tons per day of forest material that we already collect. And then there's as much as another 1,300 tons per day of just food waste, food soiled paper, yard waste that still ends up in the black bin, that could basically be diverted to the green bin program. These tonnages are obviously subject to change based on operational and economic conditions, so we see that things vary based on time of year, as well as if people are, making changes to drought-tolerant landscaping, have less yard waste, things of that nature, as well as just our overall zero waste programs are implemented in terms of educating residents and reducing the amount of waste produced in the first place. Vendors can propose for a combination of services, and it can be for the complete or partial amount of the total organic waste that we're estimating. For the types of processing that we know are available for organic waste, there's mechanical processing, so this is kind of the process we currently do with our vendors. This is the chipping, grinding, screening, and mulching. There's more advanced processes such as biological, which include composting, co-composting, anaerobic digestion, and fermentation. So these are some of the contracts that we've been doing through either short-term contracts or letters of agreement. And then thermal processing such as pyrolysis and gasification to basically turn the organic waste into a beneficial product such as electricity, heat, alternative fuels, renewable energy, or some other beneficially reused product. LA Sand does also continuously look for any alternatives or new technologies that vendors can bring to the board when they propose on this contract. For the scope of services, a proposal can include options for the processing of green waste and food waste, either collected separately or commingled. Obviously, for the residential program, the intent is to go to full commingled, so we would need vendors that can handle both types of material collected and processed together. However, there may be some sources of source-separated food material that could continue to be collected from programs such as LAX or other city departments. Additionally, facilities should indicate if they're able to accept food-soiled paper products and biodegradable or compostable products and other kind of those hard-to-process or hard-to-handle materials that we're seeing show up in the waste stream. Continuing on the scope of services, vendors can either receive the material directly at a facility for processing, so that's delivery by our own LA Sand trucks. They could provide a transfer station where we will deliver the material to, and then they will transload and haul it to their processing facility, or options for receiving pre-processed material. So this could be sending material to a facility that cleans out the contamination, screens it, does some sort of grinding or processing, but then that material then gets taken to a second facility for additional processing to either generate compost or produce natural gas, some additional step needed in terms of their processing. The facilities must be fully permitted solid waste facilities and have the ability to receive, transport, process, and beneficially reuse the commingled organic waste. The vendor should provide what their proposed facility is and the proposed operations. Additionally, they should provide what amount of capacity is being reserved for the city through this contract. So as other cities are working to implement their SB 1383 plans, we know that there's a need for much capacity throughout the Southern California region. So as part of our SB 1383 planning, we want to know how much capacity is secured just for the city so that we can ensure that we have the amount of capacity needed for all the organic waste that we produce and collect. Vendors should also provide alternative or contingent facilities in the event that their main facility or other main facilities that we contract with experience any sort of delays, operational issues, or aren't able to accept the material. The city is also interested in proposals that have some sort of cost benefit or profit sharing. This can be done in the form of either a dollar per ton that is paid back to the city because of the marketing and the revenue that they generate from their finished products, or alternatively to share back some of those finished products back to the city so that either we, other departments, or our constituents have the ability to use those products such as compost. For the terms of this RFP, we would be doing 5 years from the date of execution with 2 additional 5-year renewal options. This is standard for most of our solid waste contracts, so we can try and ensure those best rates. The city does reserve the right to award 1 or multiple contracts for any portion of the scope of services, and we do, and proposers are welcome to submit any sort of alternative option proposals or something that meets the overall goals but may not necessarily fall in the exact scope as we've defined it here in the RFP. For all of our proposers, they do need to comply with the city's BIP requirements. For the RFP, we've set anticipated participation levels of 10% MEB, 2% WEB, 2% SBE, 2% EBE, and 2% DVBE. And this could be for scope of work including environmental outreach, transportation, things of that nature, as most of the actual processing will probably be done by the actual prime contractor. For our evaluation criteria, we put 10 points on qualification and experience, 10 points on permanent workplace safety, 30 points on technical requirements, 10 points on financial requirements, 30 points on proposed service fees, and 10 points towards profit sharing for a total of 100 points. And with that, I will ask if there are any questions we might be able to answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Roscoe. Do you want to close this out, Dr.?
Yes, let me stop my screen share.
Great. Okay, Dr. Davis, well, we can start with you. You're on mute, Mike.
Thank you. Can you hear me now, Mr. President?
Got you, sir.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask, in terms of the timeline of this proposal, what are we anticipating the timeline for implementing this will be?
Yes, so we're hoping to release the opportunity onto LA Bavin as soon as possible, and then give proposers basically I think our estimated timeline is through November to submit their actual proposals. We already have LA Sands evaluation team put in place and have our evaluation criteria set up. So we're hoping to do a pretty quick evaluation over the course of December, January, as well as to compile any questions we might have back for the proposers. We anticipate to then basically do negotiations and question and answer facility site visits, either virtually or in person with the vendors, and that'll help us to finalize our scoring criteria. We hope to have scores completed by, I believe, mid-2022, and then that basically gives us a year to a year and a half to then negotiate and finalize the actual contracts with the vendors. We hope to return to the board by the end of 2023 with the authority to award and execute at the latest. So then that way we can have the contracts up and fully executed with council approval by the start of fiscal year 24-25. So it's basically a 2 to 3 year estimate out, and that's just being conservative as we're unsure how many vendors may propose, as well as just, the actual process to get the contracts negotiated, agreed upon by both the vendor and the city, and then go through the approval process to get them executed.
And once, in fact, we do put ourselves in a position to make a selection, what do we anticipate in terms of time that the agreement will be with the vendor selected? Would it be a 5-year contract with a 5-year renewable, or what structure do we anticipate that we would implement once we are in a position to make a decision for a vendor?
Yes, so we're anticipating to do a 5-year with 2 5-year renewals. This is similar to the last RFP that we released for organic waste. However, if there are vendors that we're looking to work with that we maybe don't anticipate executing long-term contracts with, we could do shorter-term contracts on kind of a pilot basis. We did this similarly with CR&R, the anaerobic digestion facility, back when we executed contracts with them in 2016. So it'll kind of be dependent on the proposals that we receive back and the confidence and reliability on the scope of service and amount of material they can provide us. But we're open to many alternatives or pilot proposals based on what vendors are out there and what they propose to handle the material.
You mentioned earlier in your presentation, as it relates to organic, that we seek to capture the organic waste expeditiously in terms of making sure that we reinvest it or redistribute it back to areas that are in need. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes. If vendors are creating a beneficial product, we would hope that there's some sort of benefit sharing or cost sharing where they can then make that material available back to the city, so that either we can use it for our own operations, such as street services, LA Rec and Parks, or provide that material to our constituents as a free product that has basically been collected from their own yards, processed, and returned back as a finished compost.
As we look at that particular area of work today, are we in a position today where we are, before this contract obviously, are we implementing a program to manage that effort currently?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we have a pilot program called Curb Your Food Waste LA. This is our residential pilot project that was offered to 18,000 residents. So those residents were educated, outreach to, provided with a kitchen countertop pail so that they could collect their food scraps over the week and then place it in their green bin for their normal weekly collection. That pilot started in 2019 and still continues to this day. So at the time we were using CR&R, our first processor that could handle the food waste. And then since their LOA has expired, we brought on the new commercial composter Recology to handle that portion of material we're collecting.
In our current activities where we engage in trying to reduce waste, how successful have we been with the current infrastructure we have to basically help achieve the reduction of waste right now?
Yeah, so from the pilot, the first component even before collection was actually education, so preventing waste from happening before the bin. So a lot of this was done through education in regards to shopping smarter, wasting less, recipes for using leftovers in your home, basically just best management practices for how to reduce waste from happening in the first place. We do also do a lot of public outreach on our all of our social media, so Facebook, Instagram, all those resources, and we're constantly in communication with Public Affairs Office and our own marketing team to try and get that messaging out. In regards to the specific pilot, any sort of measurable results, Dr. Rowena Romano is present today, so I don't know if, Rowena, you can speak to any specific metrics or things that we measured from the program in terms of waste reduction. Those are all kind of the things that are ongoing in terms of how we try and reduce waste from happening in the first place.
Sure. My additional question would be, we anticipate, based upon your testimony, that it will be somewhere around 2 to 3 years before we're able to put this proposal before us in play, if you will. During the 2 or 3 years that it'll take us approximately, what will we continue to do as it relates to our goal to help reduce waste in those years? Will we continue to do the same thing that we've been doing, or please explain?
Yes, so as I mentioned, the existing pilot residents will be able to continue diverting their food scraps for their weekly collection. And Recology, the vendor that we're working with through a letter of agreement, will be able to continue processing that material. Other than just our normal collection program, LA San is still working on a number of programs to address food waste. One of them being establishing food scrap drop-off locations at farmers markets, developing more local community composting and infrastructure. This was an item I believe we spoke to the board on for a USDA grant that we were awarded, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. So there's still ongoing efforts in terms of establishing methods to collect food scraps from residents and turn them into beneficially reusable products and diverting them away from the landfill. And then, as you mentioned, right, the contracts do have the potential to take 2 to 3 years, but we are hoping to try and expedite that process. I think 2 to 3 years is our deadline in terms of lining up with when this contract with Waste Management will expire and our plans to expand the program. But if we can execute contracts sooner than that, based on the responses and the negotiation time period, we do hope to try and get them as soon as possible.
You mentioned in your report biodegradable and vendors and or stakeholders being able to identify biodegradable products. Could you elaborate for me in the identification of biodegradable products? Is this a process that we can effectively and immediately process easiest as it relates to our work in trying to reduce waste?
Yeah, so these materials are actually probably the most challenging for us to address at the moment, more so than even just the collection of the food waste. There are a number of products that are being marketed out for consumers that are marketed as biodegradable, compostable, break down in the landfill, break down in compost, and there's a number of different certifications that are out there that these vendors kind of apply for. The challenge with this is that a number of these certifications, including ASTM D6400 or BPI certification, are done more in a lab setting. So under ideal conditions at a certain temperature for X number of days, this plant-based pork will break down by however much percent. The challenge that we're seeing ourselves and the challenge that we're seeing in the industry is that when these materials are placed into a compost bin and actually go to a real-life commercial composting process, they don't break down to the amount that they need to then make that compost marketable for the composter to sell back to end users. And so this is a challenge that is happening out in the industry nationwide, not just in California. And it is a challenge because, right, residents are believing that they're doing something environmentally beneficial by choosing an alternative material composed as opposed to a traditional plastic. But the reality is that there isn't the full infrastructure and understanding to actually handle.
The biodegradable. Is that right?
Yes.
When SB 1383 gives us some specific timelines and goals to achieve by a certain time, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so I guess in summary, when we are able to, in 3 years, to identify a vendor and able to get an agreement, what in fact will the overall implementation of this program help us to achieve, if we might know, in terms of the first year of operation? What is our expectation that will occur in terms of results that we seek to achieve, putting in the contractor where we need him or her, and their implementation of helping us to reduce waste with this infrastructure we're hiring them from or for? What do we anticipate that we will be able to achieve in this operation?
Yeah, so really once we have the contracts in place, that is kind of the method for actually handling the material we collect. Subsequently, LA San will still continue to do our own planning for how we actually expand the curbside program. So that'll kind of be happening simultaneously while we're working through the contract. So a lot of that will be in terms of how do we do the marketing, how do we do the outreach, what type of signage, pails, education resources, flyers are provided to residents to basically explain the goal, the change in the program for the green bin, and the benefits that exist there. In terms of actual collection, I don't believe I can speak on exact numbers for how much we estimate in terms of participation. A lot of that will be based on how quickly we phase in the number of households once we have the contracts in place. So we probably won't go to a full citywide expansion at first. We may do a phased implementation. And a lot
James,
of that...
I'm sorry, let me jump in quickly. Commissioner Davis, to your point, we know from our waste characterization, I'm sorry, Alex Halou for LA Sanitation.
Yes, Alex, yes.
All right, so from our waste characterization at the landfill, we know there is over 52 to 57% of organics that's currently is in the landfill. So our target is really to remove that organics from the landfill. Through this contract and through other programs we are implementing. So we're not going to be waiting just for this contract to solve all our diversion issue. So one of the programs, for example, we are working on is diverting the food, doing the public education outreach. We already have a very successful program on compost where once we chip and grind them or we do composting at a couple locations in the city, for example, Griffith Park and others, we take that material, we place it on sites where residents come in and take that material, apply it to their backyard. We are also working with Commissioner Villegas on about $2.75 million in programs will be coming to the board to approve that we got through the American Rescue from the federal government. And that is basically targeting food insecurities. So this way, if you have good food, doesn't have to go to the landfill. That food could go back into the community where it could use it. We're also establishing compost sites. We're probably going to have about 30 to 40 locations around the city and farmers markets where people can bring their food scrap back so we can use it back into the community. So they're coming into the farmers market, they drop their food scrap, they take with them a bag of compost. So that is a program we're working on. We're also working with Council District 9, who allocated about $1 million in the budget to help the nonprofit organization move food around. So sanitation is coordinating with them about providing refrigeration and so forth. So we are working on multiple fronts to really reduce that organic that is heading to the landfill. So this will help us achieve SB 1383, but what we have really bigger than SB 1383 is the Mayor New Green Deal, where he talked about 90% diversion by 2025.
Great. I'm glad to hear that we have goals that are exemplars for us as a city, as a metropolitan city, and hope that the work that we do in implementing this program will not only, again, help us to achieve the goals that are set to us by the state in 1383, in SB 1383, but then again, to reflect the values that we seek to have in the overall market of cities who are implementing these kind of reduction of waste programs. Finally, my observation is that these are lots of millions of dollars for us to be in compliance to do this task that's environmentally necessary. And at the same time, when we spend these kinds of millions of dollars from an organization like a city of Los Angeles, there ought to be some kind of reinvestment of those dollars back into the society that's paying those dollars. And so I want to say in my observation that I'm pleased to see in your presentation that you showed us specifically how we have inclusion. And I'm very pleased that we do have business inclusion, because sometimes that becomes a challenge. But you have, in my opinion, done a great job in terms of helping to make sure that those in the Los Angeles area have a nickel in this dime, if you will, that they too can be involved in helping to implement such a very important task as we seek to achieve what is environmentally prudent, as we will be able to reduce waste. So that is my observation, and I'm certainly pleased to see this in your presentation, and I look forward to your moving forward with this, and that we hopefully will be a city that will be an exemplar for other major metropolitan areas that certainly is going to have to embrace the same kinds of goals that we're seeking to achieve in your proposal. Mr. President, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Calosa.
Thank you, President Good. Thanks to the LACM team for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Rosca. Just to follow up on what was just mentioned by Commissioner Davis and Mr. Halou. So the intent for all the programs that you just mentioned for, trying to divert all this organic waste is to really use this contract, right? Or whoever responds to this contract will be, this is a contract that will be used to address those other programs. Is that correct?
I think this contract will address the 1,700 tons a day of the green waste that we have, also the food waste that's currently going to the landfill. It does not preclude us from doing more aggressive recycling and pulling cardboard that's heading to the landfill right now from going into the blue bin. It does not preclude us from doing more food diversion by doing, so that food insecurity program is up and running. It does not preclude us from expanding, working with the recycling partnership and others, so we can remove more plastics and more items out. So this will address one or a couple of the things, but it's part of our global addressing of the organics program will be just a piece of that. And we're doing, again, we're doing a great job with Recycla. We have saved millions, we have provided millions of food to needy community through that program. So this does not really preclude us from continuing and expanding the other programs.
And in terms of like a food waste, organics waste, RFP, this is really the first for LACN, right?
Yeah, James mentioned it. We did in 2016. The market was not ready. All we got was one proposal at the time, which came from left field, from CR&R. People were not willing to take a chance on them. We did in sanitation. We saw the potential of that program with the dry fermentation process that they operated. So we said, you know what, if they do it, we will send you the tons. If you do not, we won't give you tonnage. So we made it tonnage based, and that gave them really kind of the incentive to go out, find funding, work with the banks to have sanitation provide them. I believe at that time we were giving them 126 tons a day. If they could operate and if they could show us that the material is diverted, which it took about 6 months to 1 year to optimize that process. So we were helping them develop that program. And now, they are up and running and adding other cities. So this is, I think, the uniqueness of this operation is that we are looking for technologies that are proven and those who could have the potential to help, not only in the city, but really nationwide.
And for the tonnage that you mentioned, are the proposers for this RFP, will they be tied to the 3,000 TPD that you mentioned? Or can it go beyond that? Because obviously this is a 15-year contract. If you can just clarify.
Yeah, so the 3,000 is just our estimate for how much is total in the system in terms of what LACN is responsible for. All right, so vendors can propose for any portion of that. If the total amount of capacity that exists from the vendors exceeds that 3,000, we can have that as something in our back pocket in terms of excess capacity. So that's definitely, we would not limit it to hit that 3,000. I think that 3,000 is kind of a minimum that we're looking to secure for all these types of materials. And then, right, as we negotiate, we'll determine either minimums with individual vendors as well as maximums that they can secure for us and provide on a daily basis.
Okay. And so if 30,000 TPD is our floor and not our ceiling, and we need to hit 90% landfill diversion by 2025, what is our magic number that you're all trying to get to in terms of diversion for TPD?
So in terms of that, right, for this, we're estimating just for that organic portion of material that still exists within the black bin. So as Alex mentioned, that's as high as 50%. That includes yard waste that still ends up in the black bin, food waste that currently goes to the black bin, but also accounts for, you know, the recyclable materials that end up in the black bin. As Alex mentioned, cardboard, paper, aluminum, glass, things that could go in our blue bin program that still end up in disposal. So we do have ongoing efforts on our blue bin side as well to address that that diversion and how we achieve that 90%. We do also have to account for the work that's happening on our Recycla side in terms of the Recycla commercial vendors, the RSPs, establishing their own processing facility for the organic waste they're going to collect from the black bin on the commercial side. So I wouldn't say there's a magic number in terms of either program. It does kind of need to be a combination of both, as well as just other efforts for, you know, our food or our waste reduction. And then for the Recycla customers, right, the RSPs do also have their own requirements and goals contractually to reduce the amount of waste that goes to the landfill or that's generated. I think it's by 1 million tons per year. So, right, that there's also a requirement on our commercial side to achieve these same goals in order to reach that 90% on a citywide, system-wide basis.
Okay. Thank you for explaining. I know that's kind of I'm sure that I'm asking you a question that you probably are all trying to calculate is how much organic waste you need to divert to really get to that. And I know some of that data might be hard to calculate with the initial pilot program and some of the ongoing efforts. I know it's a moving target to kind of collect all that data and analyze it and come up with that number. But you know, I know there's a lot of investment, a lot of interest around a lot of these programs, which is why I asked in case we did know. Specific to the outreach, I know that you mentioned, Mr. Halu, that in the first iteration, if you will, when you initially put out an RFP or a call out to provide a similar service, that there's only one respondent. What outreach is LA San doing to make sure this is a successful RFP, that we get back hopefully a robust set of contractors to respond to our ongoing and expanding needs for organics?
Quickly on the data, we do know exactly what targets we have to achieve to do the 90% by 2025 and 2030. Myself, Dr. Romano, and Bob has spent hundreds of hours calculating those numbers. So we know, for example, on the commercial side, current generation is about 1.7 million. Part of the Recycla contract required them to reduce by 1 million ton by 2025. So this is an actual data that goes to the landfill, so you have a weight tickets certified by the state of California. So we have that data, so we know they have to take down by 1 million to achieve the mayor goal, right? Which is more aggressive, again, than SB 1383. Frankly, to me, SB 1383 does not scare me. What scares me is the Green New Deal by the mayor, because it's more aggressive and more encompassing and addresses the climate change much faster than the state of California. So we have 1 million tons coming out from Recycla. On the residential side, we are close to 900,000, but let's take it simple. It's about 1 million ton right now going to the landfill. So our goal is to reduce by 300,000, give or take, right? So when you add these numbers versus the generation rates that we have calculated with UCLA, that gives us a high 90% diversion from landfill. Plus the amount, actual material to the landfill has been reduced substantially. I mean, we have all these calculations when, you know, in the back. On the RFP, we advertised it using the LA Bavin. We used to use newspaper and the media, all the consultants who are talking to us, all the companies that have bid on other cities. So they have to take the first step and register on LA Bavin, or now it's called OPS. So they have to register, they have to sign in, and then they have to attend the meeting. And so we make every effort to send as wide a net as possible. So, but it's encompassing on them to attending and seeing if the technology is readily available to address the city. Again, when you're producing 3,000 tons of material, we know not a single entity is able to handle all of it on a daily basis. So we look for different options and different diversification in handling it. And we will use, our social media, we'll use our LA Bavin and everything else that we need to alert as many people to apply to this. And again, we were the first really to find CRNR at that time because nobody wanted to test that technology. It was coming out from Europe, was not well, did not work well in certain places, but we took a gamble on them with protection of the city at the same time, because we said, if you can process it, we will give you the material. If you cannot, we would not want to pay for them just to take the material and send it to a landfill. So we have to protect the city on the other side of it.
Right. Okay. Thanks for adding that. Yeah, I just wanted to know what additional outreach. I know we always do the BAVN, which we're required to do for posting, but yeah, the additional outreach I know is going to be really important for this. And for the actual budget, I know it's $480 million, which is a ginormous number. $500,000 almost. Is that for a 5-year contract, or is that for including with the 2 5-year renewals?
So that estimate was just based on 5 years of collection, so just the first 5-year term of the contract.
Okay, so this would be like less than like a $1.3 million contract if it were over the course of 15 years if we were to exercise the renewal.
You mean billion, Commissioner?
Sorry. Yes.
I like the million. I mean, I like that.
But yes, that's correct. If we were to extrapolate that out for the additional 2 5-year terms, it could be as high as $1.5 billion over 15 years.
I gave us a discount, President Good. Because I know LA San will negotiate a really good deal for us. And the other piece that I had a question about was in terms of the evaluation when you get the actual responses. I don't know if that's something that we put in the RFP typically, or if that's something after we get proposals back. But since it's such a long contract, is there an evaluation that's included for our future contractors to make sure that they're meeting our expectations and the goals and everything set out by the mayor, the state, and so forth?
Yes, so there is an evaluation criteria, which is the end of the presentation. So we do have the point breakdown, and that is also included in the RFP itself. And then in the RFP, it elaborates on the individual sections as well for what sort of components are required or expected in terms of their responsiveness. So the vendors know kind of what aspects we're looking for them to provide in their proposals back to the city.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I didn't mean the evaluation of the proposers. I mean, like once we actually award the contract, since it's a 15-year contract, if both renewals are exercised, during that 15-year period, is there an evaluation that we're baking into this RFP so that, I don't know, every few years we have an opportunity to evaluate the contractor on their work so that they're meeting our expectations and goals, since we have Mr. Hulu outlined a very aggressive schedule, and I just want to make sure that we're building that into the RFP if we need to do it at that stage, or if that's something that can happen after we receive responses.
I think, Bob, you just unmuted.
I mean, it's in all of our contracts, right? We have performances that are required by our vendors, and we have termination clauses if they fail to meet them. So we do a constant evaluation of what we expect of them. Are they meeting the goals? Are they diverting properly? And we have the ability to terminate. I think the secondary evaluation process is the renewal process, right? Before we enter into a renewal, we do 5 years, and then when we go to renew, we're also going to evaluate if we're going to continue services with the vendor because they provided what we've asked of them. So I think there's 2 angles there. But we have, terminated services with vendors in the past that did not provide what was asked of them due to the termination clauses that are built into all of our contracts.
Okay. Thank you. I just wasn't sure if there was anything else we needed to ask here. And then I'm going to ask one last question on this item, is kind of specific to what Dr. Davis asked, is are we actually wanting in this RFP to have them be involved in the outreach work, or is it specifically just to process the material? And I ask that because that's become such an important component for, as you all know, our residents, to make sure that they understand this. Oftentimes what I've seen in our existing contracts is that's kind of fallen to LA SAN, right? And it's been much more beneficial when we've seen a lot of those outreach requirements and that work be built in partnership with the actual contractor handling the material. So just wanted to see if that was something that you all thought about already.
We can definitely add it during negotiations or during the pre-proposal meeting for a cost on that one, because I'm sure they'll do it for a price. So, but then we also want to make sure if they use it, then they'll be able to reach the community groups, neighborhood councils, and others who could help us spread that message. So it's something we can probably, usually after we release an RFP, we have pre-proposal meeting and we do a quick addendum to it if there is any clarification we need to do. That's something we probably could work on.
Yeah,
Your
and then
point and Commissioner Davis' point.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that as well, right, a lot of that outreach will be contingent on who our final vendors are, because, right, in terms of how the material is collected, it may vary from waste shed to waste shed, which vendors receive what material. So, right, how do we make sure that that messaging is consistent throughout the city, but still applicable for the variety of vendors and different processes that'll be handling the material that we collect? So it'll kind of be, I think, right, if we can include it in terms of the scope of service that they have through the contract, but also, right, just kind of an ongoing marketing outreach thing that we have to work out between both the vendors and our own internal communications to, right, have that consistent and clear messaging to the residents.
Okay. Yeah, I would certainly really be interested in seeing that. I would highly recommend LA SAN and would want you all to include that as part of this RFP, because it's a consistent thing that we don't build into the scope of work for these programs. And since you're handling the residential, waste, we need our residents to actually understand and know how to be part of the solution of helping divert our organics. So to the extent in which you're all able to add that to the project budget, I think it would help LA SAN in the long term, the Department of Public Works in the long term, and then ultimately, of course, the city in our goals. So I'll go ahead and yield the rest of my time and hope that I will see that when this comes back to board. So I'll keep an eye out for that. And thank you all for all your hard work on this and for answering my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Calosa. I do want to just, on that point, real quick, Commissioner Villegas and President Pro Tem Davis's point, just for clarification, Alex and company, in contrast to Recycla, for example, in this situation, still the clearest touch point, the most direct touch point to customers in terms of this outreach is us, right? Because this is residential. I mean, so I'm wondering. I would love to know, Commissioner Calosa and President Pro Tem Davis, a little more what y'all are thinking, because ostensibly these processors may have zero customer connection or contact. This is really sanitation. Now, I think there's a question about the processors coordinating with sanitation around the throughput and what they're getting in the bins, out of the bins, which will be crucial. But I'm wondering just what y'all, for my own edification, because I want to hit on that too, what y'all are thinking about in terms of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think some initial ideas I was thinking about with outreach was expanding mobile events, for instance, in which they would need to become a critical partner. Right now, the pilot program for our organics program is only in 18,000 households. that's not very many. And once we start implementing this in a much wider scale, people will need areas to drop these off of. And LA Santa is not going to be able to do that on their own. So being able to build in some flexibility into the contract so that whoever responds is aware that this is coming, even though we may not have specifics about how we're going to implement it just yet, that they know that this is part of the work. If they are lucky enough to get this contract, that they need to help us make this program succeed. And a lot of that will have to, like you mentioned, coordinate all these efforts from the USDA grant to all the farmers market to all the other pilot programs that we have. And I'm not sure what the best way to write that into the RFP is. That's where I defer to LACM, but I want to make sure that you all have the flexibility to tap into the actual contractor, handling the material to help you all with this work. Because I don't think I see that outlined in here, and I know that's something that we always think about after we award, right? And we have the opportunity now to at least build in that flexibility, and so those are kind of my initial thoughts on that.
And I could jump in real quick because this isn't the overall organics outreach program presentation. So to your point, Commissioner, SB 1383 has mandates within it, right, that require us to do outreach, education, targeted bin assessments, load assessments based on the materials that we're receiving at the facilities. So that's built into another bigger umbrella of the organics program that will be addressed with our ambassador program. And we, in our budgets coming forward with the future budgets, that will be an integral part of how we reach our goals is through that outreach and education campaign.
Yeah, exactly, Robert Potter. I was going to add to Commissioner Colosa's observation about outreach to say that awareness, public education, and information in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what role constituents play in the process of helping to make this work on the best interests of the city in this public relations effort. And I'm glad that it's written in SB 1383 that would certainly reflect our effort to reinvest these millions of dollars that we're spending into other areas of the community as well. So I agree 100% with both what Commissioner Colosa has said and as well, Robert, with what you have shared with us that is a part of the proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. That makes sense. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's comments. This is pretty extensive. I hope that you all can tell that we're sincerely interested in your work, and that we will do our part to also just lift you all up and help. It seems that we are we're a board that's engaged in the work that you all are doing, as well as seeing that we just launched our food recovery task force as well. I think that most of some of the questions that I had, both Dr. Davis and Commissioner Colosa actually asked them. And so one question I did have, and you all would be the experts in this, as you put out this RFP, how can you gauge the interest of participants that would be engaging in this RFP? You mentioned, I feel like we don't have enough private businesses that do this line of work or that do this expertise. And I wanted to know from your advantage point, because you all speak to some of these providers, and you'll probably be seeing them after you put the RFP out, seeing what the interest is, but I'm asking in advance of that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Villegas. So definitely, we've been in contact and doing research in terms of facilities that are out there that have capacity or are developing capacity to handle this type of waste. As I mentioned, Recology was a vendor that we just brought on through a letter of agreement, and they do have a very large commercial composting facility with a large amount of capacity available. And so that's kind of what prompted us to do that outreach, to execute an LOA, see if we can make it work, see how they handle the material that we're currently collecting, and to ensure the food waste that we're still picking up from the pilot has a home, as our contract with CR&R has since expired. Other than existing facilities, over the past 2 years, LA San has met with a number of vendors that have actually outreached to us, looking to either develop new facilities or infrastructure, offering things such as in-vessel composting from a company that reached out to us that has existing operations in Brazil, other vendors that are trying to propose new technologies or development of anaerobic digestion sites, and are really trying to look for what space or what type of facilities would be available within the region in terms of the space needed to develop a site. So we know there is some interest from a lot of newer vendors that are looking to develop and get into the market, as well as existing vendors that are already in the region but are still looking to either develop or build new capacity, not only for us but for other cities within SoCal. So we know there is interest in terms of kind of gauging a number of respondents or a number of proposals that we'll receive. We won't really know until the actual RFP itself, as well as, just monitoring how many businesses sign up on the LA Babin opportunity.
Okay, and would you entertain a proposal from some businesses that don't have the infrastructure built?
So that's why we do have an option for the alternative proposals, or also proposals that will need some time to be developed. There will be a lot more considerations in terms of, do they actually have the experience in existing facilities, even if they're not developed here, but can show the experience in other facilities either throughout the nation or around the globe. So that is definitely a consideration that we're open to, but there is a lot more, constraint and evaluation and kind of scrutiny that we have to put in terms of those type of proposals. So we wouldn't prohibit them from proposing, but definitely we would just need to see how they align and how feasible the process and the vendor's responsibility truly looks like.
Yeah, but I think Commissioner, I think your question is a great question, right? SB 1383 changed the processing of organics, right? And the vendors that we deal with, they're not only just vendors for processing, they also run collection operations. So they're going to have to adapt, and outside agencies are going to adapt. I mean, I look at it similar to, in the past when we only had diesel trucks, right? And the purchase of a natural gas truck was something nobody even believed could happen. Today we run 86% of our fleet on natural gas, and we're transitioning to electric, right? So the industry and the markets adapt based on what their needs are, right? And we've always had that, and we anticipate there's a little challenge up front when you adjust, just like with electric vehicles. We're working out the kinks, but these vendors know that this is the only way that California is going to process this kind of waste, so they're going to have to adapt to it, and we anticipate that we'll see a lot of emerging technologies and a lot of vendors that are increasing capacities.
Thanks. I think at the end you all mentioned, that you're looking to do some either like partnerships or cost sharing. And it just, made me think of others perhaps that maybe don't have all their infrastructure built, but they could possibly start out and also partner with other existing, folks that are already here in California or in LA to be able to, I'm just talking off the top of my head. So you mentioned all that, and I was just thinking about that.
And we did that also in our MSW contracts, right? So there was alternate technology. So we allowed them to bid, and then if they can produce the technologies, we'll entertain contracting with them.
Yeah, it's just thanks for that. It's just a way to push more innovation, and I'm hoping that we get that. When you put out this RFP, and in November when you receive them, that is indeed what we are able to see. I don't have any further questions. Thank you so much. Thank you to the whole team. You guys are excellent.
Agreed. Thank you to the whole team also, and thank you, commissioners, for really robust conversation here. I do have a few questions. One, just on the on the outreach piece, a thought I had, because I do think that, I mean, it's not like, in some way, I mean, it's different, it's distinguishable from, say, Recicla, obviously, where we straight up expect, count on, require, and need our contractors or our RSPs to directly engage in the outreach part of it. And by the way, it's also in their interest. I mean, it's baked into those contracts that it is in their interest to do so, which I think is an elegant and appropriate and effective thing that we've done there. This is distinguishable, except that I also get Commissioner Closa and Commissioner Davis, or President Pro Tem Davis's points in terms of, in the end, you know, actually, I'm going to sweep in Commissioner Villegas's points too. In the end, what you guys are trying to do is to sort of figure out, like, or anticipate where this highly fluid sector is going to go, right? On everything from markets to infrastructure capacity to behavioral, you know, science in terms of, you know, our constituents, in terms of residents, et cetera. And that's a very, I mean, these are all malleable factors that are really difficult to sort of pinpoint looking forward. And so in that context, it behooves us to really be in partnership with all the folks we do the work with, right? Because the four of you know better than anybody, as removed ostensibly as those you know, potential processors will be from the direct points of contact, again, in contrast to y'all at the curb and Recicla providers at the commercial and multifamily curbs, they're still part of this continuum. I mean, waste flow there's no sort of like, you know, cutoff points with waste flow. It all, you know, it all flows, right? So, and I do think that it would be really meaningful for us to be, you know, for that partnership to be as holistic as possible. And I think the RFP that y'all created really works toward those ends, recognizes those. So, and then working with y'all in terms of that outreach, because so much of this is going to be about people figuring out how to exercise or how to employ their green bins, right? In an effective way. If a bunch of you know, MSW or mixed solid waste ends up in green bins, we're going to be undermining this process. And so maybe a thing to do, and I think we actually did this with the Recicla RFP, would be to have an open-ended element in the RFP that essentially invites proposers to, you know, articulate any existing vision for how they would A, want, B, could, or C, may participate and partner with sanitation and outreach to Angelenos. So it doesn't sort of like make the proposal contingent on specifics there, but it does send a signal, certainly to the proposers, that we expect that. Because I know, for example, with the Recicla RFPs, even though that was not, like, there was a requirement part, but there was a lot of pieces there where we asked for vision, and people were generous with that, even if it wasn't like part of the points. So maybe just something open-ended. I'm sorry to soliloquize on this, but something open-ended where we're essentially saying, what are your thoughts? How would you envision doing this? You know, and then depending on what you get back, that could be worked. That kind of stuff could be worked into the negotiations too. So I don't want to be presumptuous, Commissioner Closa, President Pro Tem Davis, Commissioner Villegas, but maybe that's a way to get to what y'all are envisioning there. I think that could actually be really helpful. It really is an invitation for proposers to sort of get open-ended without feeling like they got to check off a box per se. But it really does invite some visioning work, which
I
could
think
be.
that that's a great tool, Mr. President. And to your point, when we looked at the recycler contract, one of the outcomes of it was that there were these call centers that they had, and they were going to hire people from the community to help man those call centers, whose goal it was to increase awareness about how the recycler system was going to work and to be available to capture all of the data that they needed to do the job effectively. That's just in that era. So as you talk about this tool in terms of putting together an option for vendors to express themselves in terms of their vision, then I think that's a great tool to get to what I think will be very healthy for all of us, not only just the vendor and the provider, which is the Bureau, but also the consumer, those who are going to have to make this work equally, a partner in it being a great system and us being an exemplar in what we're going to do. We can't do it without those who are going to be a part of the process, which is the constituent, in terms of helping us to make sure that we help to reduce this waste, because after all, they're the ones with the waste.
Well, and that's where it's going to count. I mean, you're exactly right. In the end,
right. Yeah.
In the end, and I think all of our SAM folks would say, I mean, in the end, it's really going to be about ensuring that Angelenos know and are conditioned to putting what they're supposed to put in a green bin versus what they're not supposed to put in a green bin.
That's right. That's right. And educating them and making them aware of what specifically we see that as being necessary.
So Alex, Bob, James, Dr. Romano, we'll assume that y'all will think creatively about inviting the creative thinking of the RFP, or of the proposers in the RFP. And just know that that's something important. We recognize, again, that the variability and the malleability of that. And I think that there could be some proposers who are going to be like, what? That's not what we do. We build infrastructure. We take in your stuff. That's your job. And that may be the case. But there could be some that will be like, absolutely, we got ideas. We got real thoughts. And I think that could be illuminating.
I would just add to that, I'm not going to call any names, but there's one vendor that I know is a quick study, and they will get it. I'm not going to call out their names.
It is a signal that we would like to see them be creative and think more holistically with the work. So I think you're right.
Yeah.
Pivoting a bit, I do want to. I will only employ a tiny little soapbox, but it's a firm soapbox, and that is, I don't have to tell you all. Certainly, waste processing facilities. Historically, globally, locally, have been notorious at times in our history. In fact, I would say right up until very recently, for not exactly being worker friendly, or even worker safe. I don't think I'm going on too much of a limb to say there are those that have existed within our city limits that have not bordered on, but actually acted almost as sweatshops, perpetuated extraordinarily dangerous conditions, and are disproportionately is not even an adequate word in terms of the people of color that are typically the frontline workers in waste processing facilities. City of Los Angeles, as a quick historic reminder, did something no other city in the United States has done, and I think globally has done, by creating a facility certification program that I think sanitation gets too little credit for as part of the recycler program. And that is a effective prophylactic around all of our facilities. And I note that you were very clear that these all have to be city certified facilities within that program that my predecessors here on the board codified, which I think is outstanding. we have in the RFP, you have in the RFP standards, workplace safety. I'm in fact quite intimate, and you all know this, with the limitations, our limitations, and I say this to Mr. Jordan in terms of preemption limitations around worker or job standards as opposed to safety standards. Cal OSHA controls a lot of that field. There's minimum wage laws, et cetera, et cetera. That's not sanitation's job per se. I just want to stress and ask that we use the strongest language legally permissible around job standards and our expectations that those will be met, and that, again, proposers be as generous as possible in terms of articulating their job standards approaches, and that we are equally clear with them that what we're allowed to do under our facility certification program, we will do intensely here, because as difficult as these jobs are in waste processing facilities, period, it is as grim as it can possibly be in food and organics processing facilities if they are not adequate, and dangerous. Lest we forget, and I won't actually even name the place, lest we forget 2012, two young men, one underage who shouldn't have been working, both immigrants, dying at an organics processing facility that we did business with, suffocating from poisonous gases as they fell into a tank. So nothing for y'all to do except that I think this whole board, and I will be watching that closely, and pull no punches in that conversation, please. This is an industry with a tortured history on that front, to say the least. And then I think that the other thing is just that this is huge. This is a gigantic endeavor. It is one that y'all are taking on straight on. We have no option but to do so. To Alex's point, not only with state law, but in terms of our own city's goals. And I applaud you for the comprehensiveness of this proposed RFP, and I want to continue to urge y'all to be as expansive in your thinking as possible. I think you're going to have to be really flexible. You're going to have to be nimble in terms of dealing with proposers, because as you alluded to, and Teresa, Commissioner Villegas alluded to, you're going to have folks who are going to come here who don't have the infrastructure yet, potentially, and so it's going to be very, and we're going to have to really figure out what this mix is going to be. It's going to be very tricky for y'all. It's a challenge that I think we all recognize, and so buckle up. But we're excited to see the work, and it is truly sacred work, because, as we all know, methane, which is the main gas that comes from organics and landfills, 20% more dangerous in our atmosphere in the first 20 years of its release than even carbon. And so this is really, really crucial work in terms of climate, in terms of zero waste, and it's something that too few people put attention on it. So thank y'all for the work. I will take a motion to move forward first with item number 6, because it seems like sequentially that actually makes most sense.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Our enthusiasm has now been trumped by looking out for each other. I love it. Any concerns or objections, Commissioner Colosa? All right. Hearing none, item number 6 is adopted and approved forthwith. I will now take a motion, and Commissioner Colosa, I will reserve it for you if you're inclined to move forward item number 5.
Oh, you're going to give me the honor. Okay. Sure. So moved.
All right. Who's my second? Well, you got left out on the last one. Who's my second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any concerns, President Pro Tem Davis?
None for me.
All right. So hearing no objections, item number 5 is adopted and approved forthwith as well. So items 5 and 6, big, hairy, and scary, but you'll get them, y'all. Thank you for your great work, and we look forward to seeing the results moving forward. Okay?
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for the excellent work. Really.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Thank you all for the excellent work as well. Let's go to item number 8. Item number 8 is an authority for expenditure, County Sanitation District number 2, Calabasas. Hello, Ms. Patel. Bureau of Sanitation and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $90,000 for contingent refuse disposal services provided at the Calabasas landfill and for green waste processing when significant delays are experienced at the city's primary facilities for the term of July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2022. Ms. Patel, are you presenting, or Dr. Romano?
Yes,
okay.
I'm presenting. Okay. Good afternoon, President Gray, Commissioner Caloza, Villegas, and Davis, Board Executive and Representative. I'm Darshana Patel, Environmental Engineer with Bureau of Sanitation. I'm here to request approval for the authority of expenditure to pay Calabasas facility. Calabasas landfill is one of the LA County facility, which we use as a contingency option when we experience delay at our primary facility. Calabasas landfill can only accept the material from West Valley Wastewater based on the Calabasas landfill waste shipment. In the event of closure or delay at the Sunshine Canyon landfill, we would have the ability to divert the West Valley wastewater refuse to Calabasas landfill as part of our contingency plan. This facility is operated by the LA County Sanitation District, and they have a policy not to enter into long-term contract for this service. The amount is for $90,000 funded by the Solid Waste Resources Revenue Fund. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Patel. Any questions, colleagues? Commissioner Colosa?
Thanks for your report, Ms. Patel. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Villegas?
Thank you. Also, Ms. Patel, I don't have any questions either.
Thank you. President Pro Tem Davis?
Neither do I. No questions.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. All right. I have none either. This is always very important to get these contingencies built in. I'll motion to approve the item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Colosa, Villegas, any concerns? All right. Thank you all very much. With hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you, Ms. Patel. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
Let's go. We'll take item number 10. Item number 10, because it's also a sanitation. This is an authority for expenditure for Kern Delta Water District. Bureau of Sanitation and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval, execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $70,000 to encumber funds for the payment of water utility charges to be incurred at Green Acres Farm in Bakersfield for the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. Authorize the president or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute this service agreement. Mr. Tran, are you on for this item, sir?
Yes, I will be presenting this item. Yes.
All right, please proceed.
Good afternoon, President Greg Good, the Board Commissioners, and Mrs. Ted Jordan, and Executive Officer. My name is Alan Tran with the LA Sanitation. We are here today for an AE to request the encumbrance of the fund to pay for the current Delta water utility usage at Green Acre Farm for farming operation. For your information, there are 3 sources of water that we use for the farming irrigation. The first one is the effluent from the City of Bakersfield Treatment Plant number 3. The second one is the groundwater from existing well at Green Acre Farm. And the third one is the Kern Delta Water District water. We purchase this water from the Kern Delta Water District, and we normally use this water during the summertime when we need more water to irrigate the crops. The request amount is 70,000, and this will cover from the July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2022. The funding will come from the sewer operation and maintenance fund. Therefore, there is no impact on the general fund. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tran. Any questions, colleagues? President Pro Tem Davis?
No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Thank you so much, Mr. Tran, for the report.
Thank you.
Sir, Commissioner Villegas?
And no questions for me either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Closa?
Thank you, Mr. Tran, for your report. I don't have any questions for you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much.
All right, do I have a motion to move the item forward?
So moved.
I got Villegas, seconded by Davis. Any concerns, Closa? Okay. Hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you, Mr. Tran.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a good weekend.
You too.
All right, that brings us to item, we'll go back to item number 9. Item number 9 is an authority for expenditure, exam fees for reimbursement. Bureau of Contracts Administration and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $30,000 to increase the yearly authority for reimbursement of exam fees to inspectors as stipulated in MOU 5, Article 5.9. Hello, Ms. Martinez. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Approval of this AFE for $30,000 is a blanket request that sets aside funds that will allow BCA to reimburse MOU 5 inspectors on an as-needed basis for costs incurred for books and deputy exam costs. I'm quoting from the MOU 5 that these inspectors are entitled to this reimbursement once they provide BCA with evidence that they have successfully obtained or renewed a deputy license in any of the 11 areas of specialty. This request sets aside $30,000 as a starting point for the year, utilizing budgeted funds. This amount allows us flexibility to process requests as they come in throughout the year. Expenditures for costs incurred in fiscal year 2020 to 2021, $60,200, of which $37,900 has been paid and $22,200 is currently being processed. With our BCA inspectors, approximately 40% of them have deputy licenses, which breaks down to 83 inspectors of approximately 213 inspectors. Whoops. Of these 83 inspectors, 347 deputy licenses are held by them. Reimbursements are processed on a rotating basis since deputy licenses expire every 3 years. Also, I need to make an amendment. On the agenda, it quotes, I believe it says 60-20 for the, I think it's called the appropriation account, and it should be 60-10, and also in the attachment.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Does anybody have questions for Ms. Martinez? Well, hard to imagine anybody I'd rather be taking care of their exam fees for than BCA inspectors. So if the price is going up, price is going up. So I will motion to approve item number 9 as amended with an amendment to revise the appropriation unit to 6010 in both the report and I guess really the report's what most matters. Dr. Campos, you got that?
Yes, Mr. President, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. If I can also add a friendly amendment to your amendment, and that is also to correct the object and the sub-object on the AFE. So again, your appropriation account would be 006010. The object would be 601, and the sub-object would be 60100. So that minor change has a domino effect on the form. So if you would accept that friendly amendment to your amendment.
I will gladly accept the friendly amendment to my friendly amendment and will motion to approve the item with a friendly amendment to my amendment. Do I have a second? Thank you, Dr. Campos. You know I'm who
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Any concerns or objections, Vegas or Closa? All right. Hearing none, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Oh, yes, Jessica, sorry, or Commissioner Closa, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I don't have any objections, but I did just want to congratulate Ms. Martinez. I think this is the first time we're seeing her since she got the appointment of Chief Construction Inspector. So congratulations, Ms. Martinez. We are always looking for more women in construction, and you are a huge champion in that work. And I know we featured you on the Women Build LA series. I think you are our very first feature. So we forecasted this appointment.
Thank you so much for that recognition. I really appreciate all of you, commissioners. Thank you so much.
Can I just echo? I mean, as one of the things I'm about to describe, let's just say construction for too long and not recently, but a little too pale, male, and stale, or a lot too pale, male, and stale, and so. To have a rock star woman of color leading our construction inspection division is fantastic. I have not gotten to meet you in person thanks to this grinding pandemic, but I look forward to it, and I certainly echo Commissioner Colosa's sentiments. Congratulations. It's just outstanding and exciting, and wish you phenomenal, great fortune in doing this work.
Absolutely. Wow, that was so kind. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it. I wish my dad was here.
We'll have to take care of that too. So get that going.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one, you guys. Bye.
Same to you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Closer, for reminding. That's so cool. I wonder if there's another mega city in the country that can say that. All right. Let's go to item 11. Item 11 is specification submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids. This is a project in CD15. This is a Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Digester Insulation Replacement, CIP 5245, work order SZT 11423. Estimated cost is $16,149,400. Bid receipt date will be November 17, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the advertisement of these and invitation bids on this project?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll take Davis' second. Alexa, any concerns? All right, thank you. Hearing none, the item 11 is adopted and approved forthwith, and we can go forward there. And now let's start with item 12. We have our weekly update on major upcoming street improvement projects. I think Mr. Becerra is with us. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody doing today?
Fine.
Right.
Good. All right. Good afternoon, President Good, Commissioners, Bureau Representatives, City Attorney and Executive Officer, Dr. Campos. My name is Antonio Becerra, Jr., Superintendent with Street Renewal Division of Streets LA. The information being provided is to keep the public informed on the upcoming resurfacing projects and to minimize the impact on the community as well as delays. For additional information, concerns, you can contact our coordinating section for the Street Renewal Division at 213-847-3200. The following major street projects are scheduled in the Metro and Valley resurfacing regions during the week of October 3rd, 2021 through October 9th, 2021. Metro region, Saturday, October 2nd, 2021 and Sunday, October 3rd, 2021 from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. we will slurry seal Adams Boulevard between Crenshaw Boulevard to La Brea Avenue in CD10, West Adams Neighborhood Council. Funding is Pavement Preservation Program or PPP. I would like to have an amendment on the report. The project scheduled for October 2nd, 2021 and Sunday, October 3rd, 2021 on Los Feliz Boulevard between Riverside Drive to Vermont Avenue in CD4 has been postponed and removed from this week's report. The project has been rescheduled and will be added to next week's report. Going to the Valley region, Saturday, October 2nd, 2021 and Sunday, October 3rd, 2021 from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. we will cold mill and pave Foothill Boulevard between Orcas Avenue to Osborne Street and CD7, Foothill Trails District Neighborhood Council. Funding is also Pavement Preservation Program, PPP. Additionally, we will provide an update on our 21-22 Pavement Preservation Program. During the week of October 3rd, 2021 through October 9th, 2021, the Metro and Valley resurfacing regions will complete 18 projects for a total of 15.14 lane miles. Press releases were distributed and notifications have been issued. Streets LA has coordinated with the council offices to assist with the outreach to stakeholders and have coordinated with the Los Angeles Department of Transportation for traffic control assistance. This information is also available on the Streets LA website, streetsla.lacity.org, located at the Resurfacing Open Projects icon. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Becerra. Any questions, folks?
Yeah, Superintendent, I wanted to ask in terms of the tasks that are going to be done, are they going to be completed this weekend or what is the timeline involved in the completion of some of the projects that you've mentioned? I know that there's a delay on the Adams project, but what about some of the others in terms of the timeline?
Timeline's there is no delay on the Adams. The Adams resurfacing project was completed for the resurfacing portion from La Brea to Fairfax. Okay. So now the next section is La Brea to Crenshaw, and that portion of Adams is going to be slurry sealed. So that's going to be done this weekend.
Oh, that will be this weekend. Okay.
Correct. What is postponed for this weekend was the Los Feliz project in CD4 that got put back to next weekend. So that's why it would be in next week's report.
I see. Did they have a special public event up in that area, or was it some issue as it relates to work?
No, it was unforeseen personnel within our work with the Valley region also working this weekend to support them. We were able to help them in order for them to finish the Foothill project this weekend. So we already talked to the council offices. We're in contact with them every week, and they are well aware. Throughout the whole project on Los Feliz, there will be, I believe it's a couple shows going on the Greek Theater area, I believe it is. And so we're going to work with them. So we're going to have all proper DOT, all notices, everything. So we're working hand in hand with the Greek Theater and the council offices in order for the project to be completed in a timely manner.
Let me ask you also, in terms of the procedures of our work, when we block off and do the survey and paving the streets, it is probably, 24, 48 hours before we're able to let cars come back on it again? What's the timeline there?
So no, with resurfacing, our time limit is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. If there's any unforeseen circumstances and we need to go past that time limit, we set up our detours and let them go around the next major select streets. But right at 6 o'clock, once that hot asphalt cools down, we pick up the traffic control. So that same day, the cars will be able to drive on it. So it's not a 24-hour period, it's the same day.
Wonderful, that's great. Well, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
All right, any other questions, folks? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Becerra. It's great to see you. Have a great weekend, okay?
Likewise, you guys all have a great weekend as well.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, we get another Christopher Giacomo sighting and visit. Hello, sir.
Sir, good afternoon.
I trust you are here to present on item 13, specialized on-call maintenance services update for the Bureau of Sanitation.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, President Good, Board, and Commissioners. I'm Christopher Giacomo, Acting Sanitation Wastewater Manager 1 at the Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant, responsible for Hyperion's maintenance planning group, and I'm here to provide a oral report on the as-needed maintenance services contract. Currently, spanning throughout several LA Sand divisions, the contract has completed 5 projects, it has 4 currently in process, and has 4 currently pending. When summarizing payments made at this point, the report on enterprise utilization, we have 56% OVE expenditure, we have 23% SBE expenditures, 2% EBE expenditures, and 19% MBE expenditures. And that number's going to significantly raise as invoices and payments related to the July 11th incident here will come in on a monthly basis.
All right. Questions, colleagues? Commissioner, did we lose Commissioner Colosa?
In the mix? I guess we did, huh? Maybe she's trying to get back in. Is Dr. Campos there? He's usually managing that.
Yeah, we lost her for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
President Good, you still have 3 commissioners here, so
Yeah,
you're maintaining your quorum.
Just wanted to give it 2 seconds in case she jumped back on. All right. Well, if she has follow-up questions, Christopher, I'm sure she'll certainly follow up. And everyone here is a witness that I waited to see if she could get back on. All right. Thank you, Christopher. I have no questions. I appreciate it, and have a good weekend, okay?
Yeah, thank you all. You too.
All right. Dr. Campos, I believe we've cleared the decks, no?
Yes, you have.
All right. Thank you. So with that, everybody, have a great weekend. This meeting is officially adjourned. Go Dodgers.
All right.
Go Dodgers.
All right. Let's go.
Have a great weekend.